He's a hard man to say no to. Anyway, good morning, everyone, and we appreciate your presence here for proper acknowledgement of our very important guests. May I ask you to make yourself known?
Good morning, Honorable Chairman Senator Angara. Our guest for today as follows. Undersecretary Kyle Chua from the Department of Finance, Commissioner Cesar Dulay from the Bureau of Internal Revenue, Attorney Jesus Clint Aranas, Deputy Commissioner Rita, representing the Department of Budget and Management, Executive Director Trinidad Rodriguez of the National Tax Research Center, Mr. Benigno Cabrieto, Vice President External Affairs, NREA, from the Bangko Sentral of the Philippines, Mr. Francisco Daquila, Managing Director, Mr. Restituto Cruz, Managing Director, Attorney Brigido Dulay, Deputy Administrator of the Overseas Attorney Veronica Diaz, Attorney P, National Housing Authority, Ms. Mariette Harriet Abordo, Deputy Director General of Corporation PESA, Attorney Alexander Cabrera, Chairman, Management Association of the Philippines for Tax Committee, representing REPAB, Mr. Nicanor Tapangco, Vice President, Mr. Manuel Raymond Mercado, President, Real Estate Brokers Association of the Philippines, Mr. Jose Ramon Magboo, Racing Manager, Manila Jockey Club Incorporated.
So, mula sa Bureau. Siguro that's only fair, uh, um, Commissioner, no? So, we'll hear both these bills and, of course, we'll give you as the main revenue. We recognize that your efforts result in collecting 80% of government revenue, which is the lifeblood of the government, as the cases say, no? So first, siguro we'll go to USEC, Chua, for the department, and we'll go to Commissioner Dulay and Deputy Commissioner Aranas. Yeah, USEC, would you care to comment on the... We'll take up the institutional reform bills first, the Bill of Rights and the Assistance Service and the exemption of BIR from the SSL.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, members of the committee and staff. At the outset, the Department of Finance, as you know, is proposing a comprehensive package of reforms covering both administration and the policy. And we would like to situate the institutional reforms that are being proposed by Senate under this overarching package, which is really to arrive at a more simple, equitable, and efficient tax system. Overall, when I had the chance to read the proposals to institute a taxpayer bill of rights, to institute a taxpayer advocate, and also to institute a taxpayer assistance service, my overall impression, Mr. Chair, is that these are very good initiatives, and as a taxpayer, of course, I support them. And but also as a government official, having joined government last year, I also noticed that there's a equally important obligation that taxpayers would have to comply with. So I think the rights of taxpayers need also to be balanced by the obligation that is expected of taxpayers. And I think many of the proposals stem from the fact that we wanted to correct the complexity and confusion that have arisen because of the non-simple way that this tax system operates. And that is why we wanted to highlight also the fact that we need to also complement these institutional reforms by going back to the basics, which basically means that in the side of policy, we need to really remove the number, hundreds of exemptions and special treatments that really create a lot of complexity in the tax system that leads rise to discretion and therefore corruption and tax evasion. And we are doing this precisely in the tax policy reform package 1, wherein we are cleaning up the VAT system and using the budget system to target the poor and the vulnerable so that we can provide these services. On the other hand, I understand from BIR that they are operating and pursuing a number of administration reforms. Some of them are being proposed for legislation, which is part of the House Bill 4774 and the TARA Bill, or the Tax Administration Reform Act, that is being heard in Congress. I understand also that BIR is also balancing the need for institutional reforms by basically ramping up their information campaign, their simplification of forms and procedures. The certificate authorizing registration is now down to 5 days, I believe. There's also the effort to segment taxpayers according to large, medium, and small, so that these taxpayers, according to size, will face procedures and forms that are commensurate to their ability to comply. There are also efforts to improve or to reduce red tape and to enhance the existing remedies and appeal system in BIR. Also looking at more market-based approaches to penalize taxpayers given high penalty and interest rates that are actually more burdensome than the basic pay. There's also, of course, outside the tax code, the Citizens Charter that we can build upon also to enhance these rights. In terms of the advocate, I think this will need a bit more work and comments from all stakeholders, because although the intention is very noble and in fact very a good approach to defend taxpayers, some of them who are not able to avail of the services of accountants and lawyers, we also need to balance this, Mr. Chair, with the additional layer that this may provide, and also of course the additional procedures that would have to be complied with. And I think we would welcome hearing the statements of the various stakeholders on this. On the Taxpayer Assistance Service, I understand that this is actually an existing institution in BIR. The Client Support Service, headed by an Assistant Commissioner, was previously called the Taxpayer Assistance Service. So this could be an area wherein we actually use administrative measures to empower and enhance the services being provided, especially at the regional or the district level. I understand, Mr. Chair, that one of the key issues in BIR is their inability to hire adequate staff. They have, I think, 10,000 positions that need to be hired, but the salary scale, I think, has been quite compressed relative to the alternative in the private sector. So we are also working with them to look at ways to improve their compensation, but at the same time also improving the merit base and performance base of these officials. And these are, I guess, Senator, Mr. Chair, our initial comments on the proposed institutional reforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yusek Chua. Can we hear from Commissioner Dulay, the Bureau?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. As far as the institutional reforms being proposed and agendaed for today, these are most welcome on the part of BIR. As the President said, change is coming, and any proposal for change is most welcome for the good of our country. As on the three aspects, on the three bills, first on the, may I mention, Mr. Chair, on the Bill of Rights. As in the Constitution, we have enshrined the Bill of Rights. In the same Constitution, we also enshrine and provide for the power of the state, like police power, the power of taxation. So it, as mentioned by Yusek Carl, there will be a need, a general need to balance the Bill of Rights with the power of taxation, because we have to maintain law enforcement in the agency. Otherwise, voluntary compliance with this, with our efforts to collect taxes would be meaningless. On the national tax advocate, Mr. Chair, the reforms being proposed are welcome. We would just like to state that we are in a position to initiate these proposals and the reforms sought to be achieved by the tax advocate. All we need, and we have to thank the Honorable Chair for sponsoring the salary standardization law, exemption requested by the BAR, because all we need, as mentioned earlier, are personnel. We have 10,000 personnel at present. If we can get another 10,000, all the aspects of the job being mentioned in the proposed reform bill will be covered. And we can also hire the best and the brightest among the CPAs and the lawyers if we get competitive rates from the exemption from the salary standardization law. Bottom line, Mr. Chair, is we are really very open and responsive to all forms of reforms. The bottom line is we have to balance all reforms with the ability of the agency to collect taxes. For after all, as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, we contribute 80% of the revenues of the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll just ask for more details regarding the vacancies in the BIR, which positions. Yeah, we don't have to give it right now, but just to get an idea of how the functions of the bureau are affected. Would DEPCOM Aranas care to add, maybe perhaps, on what the commissioner has said?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and distinguished members of the resource speakers here today. Your Honor, I fully support what our Undersecretary Carl Chua and my commissioner mentioned earlier. We are ready to provide you every uh, advice on how to improve to have a pragmatic approach to increase the transparency and simplification of tax collection, Your Honors. And appreciate the resource speakers to be here because I'm sure they can add something, especially from the taxpayer side, on how the tax administration can function fully to help the ease of doing business in the Philippines. Just to add, Your Honor, the if you your earlier question, the total plantilla of the BIR is 21,634. We have right now 9,292. We're actually lacking 12,342. Of the same, our recruitment for 2015 and 2016. On 2015, we were able to recruit 722. On 2016, we were able to recruit 566. But the departure at the time also, Mr. Chairman, was like 286 for 2015, 387 for 2016. I'm willing to provide you this data, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Yes. So, how about the lateral attrition law? It's not being implemented at present, no?
We are implementing it
You're
under
implementing
this
it.
administration,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
So when is you will, is it implementable for the first 6 months? Do you already look at profit sharing or the opposite? Or you have to wait for 1 year?
It's an annual.
So does that mean you wait till the end of 2017 or the middle of 2017?
That is correct.
Which one?
From annual from our when we took over, because when we took over, Mr. Chairman, the commissioner implemented the attrition law fully. This was suspended actually in the previous administration.
Yeah. Let's study that also, no? To what's the intention? Is it to repeal or to supplement or amend the? We will take the lead from your recommendations because you are on the ground and your people are the ones affected, no? And they will tell us whether the law is working well or not, no? But clearly that was an attempt to address the inadequacies in compensation of the bureau and incentivize people and to collect the proper government by aligning private and public incentives, no? So okay. So if we could now hear from the DBM, I think Director Lita, Director Ryan Lita is here. Sir, please give us your position.
Yes, good good morning, sir. Good morning. On the part of DBM, we fully support the reforms on the part of the taxation system to be spearheaded by the Department of Finance to this honorable body. However, we would like to for the honorable chair to note our serious concerns regarding the exemption from the salary standardization law. While we support that the BIR and the the revenue generating offices should have a competitive rate with the private sectors, we are already addressing that through the enactment or the issuance of the Executive Order 201, which aims to at least level up with the private sector in terms of the salaries and compensation of the government personnel. Um, Insofar as the creation of positions here on Mr. Chair, uh, we are uh, we are noting that there are many unfilled positions under the BIR, but noting their previous suggestions to to increase the salary rates of these employees to enable them to attract more employees under the BIR, we are suggesting instead the creation of a corresponding position which have as a higher salary grade consistent with the salary standardization law. Also, on the creation of an office for the National Taxpayers Advocates, we note that the BIR is already mandated under their organizational setup to have a client support services as one of their functions. It has currently 4 divisions, which already caters to the public taxpayers. If if the honorable body would like to strengthen this service, we are fully supporting that. However, we would suggest that it would be under the BIR also and not as a separate office. And likewise, under the Senate Bill 308, there is a provision therein that the taxpayers advocate would have to determine the compensation and position classification of the employees under the taxpayers advocate. We note that the DBM under the Congress Joint Resolution number 4 is mandated to administer the compensation and position classification system of the whole national government agencies. And the provision also states that the qualification standard shall be determined by the office. We also note that the civil service is the one responsible to determine the qualification standards of government personnel. With that, Your Honor, we would like to submit our comments, and we will be submitting our formal comments later.
Thank you, Director. Uh, I'm just wondering if the DBM has ever supported the exemption of any agency from the SSL historically. Yeah.
In my recollection, Your Honor, we are really for the standardization of salaries, considering that exempting one agency from the salary standardization would would have implication on the part of the national government trying to balance out the executive branch.
Talagang hindi, no? You mean it's parang dekahon na yung ano nyo, yung position nyo dyan, di ba? You really, it's a standard line that you give us that so lahat ng mga insurance commission, yung SEC, lahat na tinaas na in-exempt, that was over your objection. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Can we hear from Executive Director Rodriguez of the NTRC?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the Bill of Rights, Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, as mentioned already, there are there are already provisions for taxpayers' rights and remedies provided for under the tax code, under the CMTA or the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act, and RA 1125 creating the Court of Tax Appeals. So we observe that this may no longer be necessary. If you will note also in the BIR website, there is this Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, although most of it covers the general procedures in the conduct of an audit by the BIR. There has been lots of reforms in the BIR to make their services to the taxpayers, like in the Citizens Charter. So that's on the Taxpayers'
What is the
Bill of
Citizens
Rights.
Charter that we're talking about, Director? What is that?
Taxpayers' Bills of Rights.
No, but the Citizens Charter, that's not an existing thing yet, no? It's
It is already.
it's already existing.
Yes, sir.
And is it posted in the BIR
in the website, sir.
in the website?
Oo.
But how about in the offices of the BIR? Naka-post ba siya?
That is under
Sa-
ARTA, Mr.
Oo.
Chairman.
Pero yeah, I know under ARTA you're required to have these things, but we all know that many agencies don't comply with ARTA. So I'm asking specifically if the all the branches of the BIR and the
I think all agencies are required to post that in the website.
Okay.
In the transparency seal. Now on the establishment of a taxpayer assistance service at the BIR, as mentioned, the envisioned functions of the proposed service are already being performed by the client support service. So what may be needed is just to strengthen the service and fill up vacant plantilla positions. We support the BIR being taken out of the salary standardization law. This is done in revenue authorities in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. This will also enable the BIR not only to attract and hire highly competent lawyers and accountants, but also to make them stay and not look for greener pastures like in greener pastures in other government offices and the private sector. So that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director. May we ask the BIR two things? What is your comment regarding the DBM's position that EO 201 or the salary standardization is sufficient to attract personnel or make you competitive with the private sector? And secondly, do we have an estimate of how much I suppose you have a planned compensation package already, and what would be the revenue hit to the government?
Mr. Chairman, may I answer? Thank you for the comments of the DBM. We appreciate it. If you can recall, Mr. Chairman, the Insurance Commission, the SEC, and the PAO, the Department of Justice are all withdrawn from the salary standardization law for the same legislative intent why it happened. Uh, it is very important for us to pass the exemption on the salary standardization law of the BIR, mainly because to fight corruption. Um, our salary scale does not justify uh, to relieve us of the grafty situation that we are in right now. We are your so-called the delivery van of the revenues of government, and if you cannot maintain the integrity of our people, pilfering of the goods will always happen. That's why that is where we're coming from. We are demanded to be professional. We are demanded to have the utmost integrity in our service. So the only way to do that, Mr. Chairman, is to allow us to recruit the best of this country, to have them in the Bureau of Internal Revenue to protect the revenues of this government so we can go on and do ahead with our projects. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The second question, DEPCOM, regarding do we already have a proposed package in place, and what was the aggregate
Yes. Mr. Chairman,
cost of that?
the aggregate cost, Mr. Chairman, will amount to 20.193 billion for a full complement of 21,634,000 people. That's 1% of our budget to be collected, Mr. Chairman. Revenues to be collected, 1.8 trillion, 1.862, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We'll ask for the breakdown later on and the details. No? On the same topics, can we ask Attorney Eleanor Roque, the Vice President of the Tax Management Association of the Philippines? Ma'am?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We in the Tax Management Association of the Philippines fully support the initiatives to safeguard the rights of the taxpayer and ensure that the government agencies concerned follow the rules and regulations safeguarding these rights. We are encouraged that the legislators are acknowledging the hardships and difficulties encountered by taxpayers in their various dealings with the tax collection agencies. With this in mind, we have the following comments on the bills. Number one, both Senate bills 308 and 815 focuses on the BIR and the BOC. May we also suggest that the taxpayers' rights be extended to assessments and collections made by the local government units such as cities and municipalities. Taxpayers have encountered various issues when dealing with some LGUs, particularly in the payment and assessment of business taxes. And in most cases, taxpayers are left with no choice but to settle the assessment, particularly since a lack of mayor's permit will affect their own business. Number two, we note that the taxpayer's assistance order shall be filed upon the application of the taxpayer. Based on experience, some taxpayers are very wary of filing complaints or cases against tax agencies. We humbly request that the provision where the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate motu proprio may investigate and thereupon issue a TAO if needed. In these cases, the taxpayer, in cases where the taxpayers do not wish to be identified. Number 3, in reports to be submitted by the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate, may we also request to include the inventory with aging schedule of requests for rulings pending with the Law Division and tax treaty relief applications pending with the ITAD offices. These offices handle requests which are very necessary for particular transactions, and undue delays in the issuances affect the timeline of the transactions per se. Number 4. In the taxpayers' basic rights, which allows them to recover attorney's fees and litigation costs, may we suggest to define the criteria as to what constitutes assessment made without substantial justification. In this regard, may we also suggest to consider the huge discrepancy between the amount stated or being collected in the final assessment notice and the amount actually due or stated in the FTDA or court decision. Finally, not yet, number 5. In the taxpayers' rights in civil cases, the right for an amicable settlement is provided. In this regard, may we request that the legislators consider amending Section 7 of the National Internal Revenue Code, which provided the power to compromise or abate may not be delegated by the Commissioner. This is one of the difficulty why the amicable settlement cannot be implemented at the CTA level, as it requires the Commissioner to be present during the proceedings. Finally, taxpayers' basic rights of speedy and impartial disposition of cases. May we suggest that it be provided that the waiver for the prescription period shall only be executed upon the instance.
Sorry, Attorney, just we'd like to recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Go ahead, please.
Morning, sir. May we suggest that it be provided that the waiver of prescriptive period shall only be executed upon the instance or request of the taxpayer. That's it, Your Honor. Thank you.
Could you explain the one for the commissioner not to delegate the power? What was the reason for that?
It's in the tax
Yeah.
code,
Yeah.
Your Honor. Which
You'd like him to be able to delegate the power?
Yes, because well, I'm a member of. I've been certified as part of the National Conciliation for the CTA cases. But when we were trying to implement that, Section 7 prevented the body from implementing that at the CTA level. Because of the limitation on the delegation, the consensus was that the commissioner would have to be present during the proceedings for there to be any amicable settlement for that particular case. Otherwise, the representatives of the BIR will just be able to get the request and then submit that with the commissioner, which would prevent the amicable settlement of that particular case as soon as possible, because it would have to go through the process under the revenue regulation for compromise settlement.
So why not amend that process of the revenue regulation? I mean, if the BIR commissioner's nod is needed, then he should just give it at the soonest time, diba? I mean, there should be a recommendation, a favorable recommendation from his people who are attending the case, and then he approves it ASAP. So what's the
The process of amicable settlement, Your Honor, requests that the parties
he must
who
be
have
present. He must be physically present for all the hearings.
No, not for all the hearings, but for the particular proceeding where the amicable settlement would have to be discussed. For any amicable settlement to be approved, it has to be approved by the commissioner, since it's not a delegated power.
And you're saying that it takes a long time on his desk. That's basically what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
And the position is that if we are going to follow the procedures under the revenue regulation, then it will just be a repeat. So you will have a procedure under the revenue regulation, and then you file the case with the CTA, and then you have to go through the same process again.
But
So
isn't it a
that-
safeguard that it's only the commissioner who can approve that kind of settlement? Isn't it a safeguard against maybe petty corruption down below?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yeah.
But if we are going to delegate a particular power, then there should be certain criteria which are clear. which would allow the person for whom the power
Why
has
not
been delegated.
amend the law so that he can delegate it for certain amounts,
Yes,
for
Your
certain maybe bigger cases, he has to sign off on it. But for a certain range of values, or if that's the property in dispute, then he can delegate. Is that an acceptable?
Yes, although right
Yeah.
now there is a provision that
Yeah.
if it's 500,000 below, it
Yeah.
can be.
But I can
sorted-
imagine those are pretty much outdated already.
Yes,
Those values.
so
Yeah.
we're proposing that if that can be amended
Yeah.
and
Maybe you submit a
Senate can look-
proposal as to that. Thank you,
Thank
Attorney Roque. Attorney Cabrera of Management Association of the Philippines. He's over here. Okay, Attorney. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, good morning. Firstly, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to express our appreciation on these entire initiatives which seek to correct some of the things for posterity. So we're not only talking about this administration or the past administration, but for future administrations as well. Insofar, Mr. Chair, as the salary standardization is concerned, we'd like to express our support for the salary standardization. It is not the first time that the salary standardization has been discussed in Congress or in the Senate, and it has in fact been rigorously pushed under the time of Commissioner Banyes, and even during before that time, it has already been pushed, and I in fact detested the comments then from the private sector that the salary standardization exemption will only make it more expensive to bribe people in the BIR. And I think that it's really time to really consider the merits of this exemption, because we need to find the experts and put them in the bureau, and give the bureau a fair chance in terms of arguing the case and making more legitimate assessments. But I would say that one general increase for everybody, and then one that is based on meritocracy, based on the expertise or the experience of the person being given the increase. Insofar, Mr. Chair, as the taxpayers' Bill of Rights are concerned, I do agree that there are provisions in the Constitution and the law that give the taxpayers already their rights. There are remedies in the tax code, and the Constitution, which says Bill of Rights for persons, should include juridical persons. But then, Mr. Chair, there's really the devil is really in the details insofar as the Bill of Rights are concerned. For instance, the taxpayer has the right against unreasonable and baseless assessments, those which we call ampaw, those which are in the amounts of millions, hundreds of millions of assessments, when the real liability is only amounting to some 2 million or so. This can be avoided if we redefine what is a jeopardy assessment. Because a jeopardy assessment, which for instance this allows 50% of the expenses in the financial statements because there's no more time in the BI to issue the assessment, it's already an invalid one under the existing tax code. But to me, also assessments which are baseless, or the ampaw assessments, should also be considered as jeopardy assessments and should be struck down as totally illegitimate assessments. The right of the taxpayer to have their protests not only filed but reviewed. And this can be seen whenever a preliminary assessment notice is followed by a final assessment notice with exactly the same amount. And that means the protest of the taxpayer to the PAN has not been read or considered at all by the BIR, despite that protest letter being filed on time or being supported. So it's not only the point of allowing the taxpayer to file the protest, it's also to be reviewed and to be heard on that protest. The right to have their request for rulings reviewed and replied to within reasonable time. The BIR has all these regulations which require the taxpayer to ask for certain rulings. But the problem is when the taxpayer files this request for rulings, no action is taken on those rulings in many cases. In fact, if I can cite one...
There is no statutory period within which to respond to the ruling.
Definitely...
covered by yung, di ba, sa anti-graft law, if you correspond, you must have an answer within 15 days, yeah? Hindi ba covered yan? Hindi. But is it,
Mr. Chair,
would it be good to put a period? Is that what you're saying?
well, in the end, Mr. Chair, I'm supposed to say that providing for taxpayers' bill of rights is good, but but if it doesn't have teeth, then it's just nice to have and beautiful words. But insofar as that request for ruling, Mr. Chair, is concerned, I have one case, for instance, in 2010, we were required to file for a request for tax exemption ruling because it's a reorganization under 40C2, and that's a 2010 transaction, and we filed our request for ruling. The BIR never issued the ruling until the year that they examined it 3 years down the road. And then we were being asked to pay up because we don't have a request, we don't have a ruling. But the reason why we don't have a ruling is that they have not issued the ruling. But we filed the request. These things, Mr. Chair, may highlight the fact that the taxpayer is always at the mercy of the BIR whenever it comes to request for rulings, especially those required under the rules.
What is let me throw this question to Attorney Cabrera and the body. What is a reasonable period to respond? Because I mean, some of these rulings might require some study, and
I would always start with 6-month period would be a reasonable waiting time. That's not 30 days. That's not 90 days. That's 6 months. And if things go really bad, we're waiting for another. We're willing to wait for another year. But I have requests for rulings which are more than 4 years with the bureau.
6
Mr.
months sounds already long to begin with. How about what does the DOF or the BIR say? And do you agree that it's a good idea to put a statutory period for rulings?
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Mr. Cabrera, good morning. First of all, sir, he's right. He pointed out two issues that is really a genuine concern between taxpayers and the tax practitioners: assessments and requests for ruling. Bottom line, what's the bottom line here? We need to professionalize the BIR. Now, on the request for ruling issue, you said you filed a request for ruling 3 years ago, and there an assessment came off it. Sir, maybe that did not come under our administration. That is correct. Is that
But
correct?
it's okay. It's okay. Let's not. The
Yes.
purpose is not really
No,
to
no, the idea
point
here-
figures. The
yeah,
purpose
we-
is
we
to
just-
come up with a solution.
Yes, sir. The solution
which,
really
which is
when-
fair to all
I'd like-
parties.
Yes,
so.
sir. I'd like to apologize because when we took over, we had more than 13,000 rulings in our docket. I think the practitioners
13,000 requests.
take request for
Requests
rulings,
for
and we
rulings.
cannot just physically do it in a 6-month period of time that we're in the bureau.
Right.
We're disposing even at the rate of 40 a day. It's just a physical impossibility to study and to make sure that the rulings that we're issuing are accurate and would benefit the government and the taxpayer at the same time. And the assessments, on the other hand, once again, sir, we all agree as a former tax practitioner that we need to professionalize the bureau. That is why we're asking for the exemption from the salary standardization. If you do not have the professional examiners who are doing your books, you will always encounter problems. The problem also is another thing is the tax compliance on the part of the taxpayers. There are two kinds of taxpayers: ignorant taxpayers who do not comply, and the pure tax evaders. It's the tax evaders that causes the corruption in the BIR. That's the problem. So if we do not have a professional bureau, the vicious cycle will continue on. That is, I think the practitioners would agree with me on that one. That is the vicious cycle. It's not as easy as a meritocracy, because if you're an examiner earning at 14,000 a month, I do not imagine how you can pay for transportation, education, housing, electricity, and everything, and have a decent life every day you go to do your work. Good morning.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You've made a strong argument for raising the compensation and exempting the BIR. But again, we still have this issue about what is the ideal or what's the best practice with respect to the requests for rulings. And maybe you have to put your practitioner's hat on, Attorney Aranas, and
Your-
think
Your
now
Honor.
that having been on both sides, what is the Solomonic solution?
The solution
here?
really,
Yeah.
if you're
Aside
if-
from raising salaries.
if there's a request for ruling, Mr. Chairman, 3 months would be sufficient, actually, Mr. Cabrera.
3 months.
It's just that the physical impossibility of just I have our lawyers right now, like 20 less than 20 lawyers processing 10,000, more than 10,000 requests for rulings. 6 lawyers and 3 legal assistants. Can you just imagine the enormity of the volume of work of one lawyer has to read through, because you have to read for every request for ruling. As a practitioner, you would know that it would take you more than a day to prepare a ruling, or at least a day to prepare your request for ruling, and to prepare a reply for that one to be accurate. It would take us more than 3 days or whatnot, considering the volume of the docket that is now pending. I think that the examiners who've been to the Law and Legislative Division have seen the walls of paperwork happening in the division. We're just trying our best, sir. And the reason why we want to professionalize the Bureau, we want to massive hire people, because we want to dispose of this. We really want to serve these taxpayers. This administration's heart is transparency and accountability, and we would like to serve the needs of the taxpayers at our best effort, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have an estimate of the figure that's lost to corruption? Because you've mentioned the 20 billion peso. Is there an independent, like a World Bank or maybe Carl knows, a study that how much is lost with respect to anomalies with respect to proper collection of or tax administration or collection of revenues? Because then you can balance it, and I imagine it's more than 20 billion. I imagine it's much more, but we can't just draw a figure out of thin air, no? There has to be some sort of basis for it, no? No, okay. We'll continue the hearing, but maybe just come back to us on that point. Thank you. Attorney Cabrera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for reverting to me. Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that I have no disagreement in principle to what Deputy Commissioner
3 months na nga sinabi niya eh.
Yes,
3 months, eh. Because
Mr.
6 months.
So I'd like to make some comments, because he made some very good comments there. Well, number one is that for sure, Mr. Chair, this is not for about
Ikaw
the
ba lilipat ka ng BIR kung tumaas ang sweldo?
after my retirement, Commissioner, I'll be very willing to help. even at the current rate. No, Mr. Chair, just like to make a few comments. Well, definitely this is not about the current administration. When the administration changes, we will be confronted with the same problem. And the two types of taxpayers that Deputy Aranas has mentioned, the compliant ones and the fraudulent ones. The problem is in the previous administration, everybody was considered fraudulent. Everybody was just treated like tax cheats. And the reason for the 30,000 rulings pending before the BIR is that no one can be trusted. Because if we go, for instance, to a particular example, the application for tax rate relief, which must be filed, that means that the Bureau doesn't trust the examiners to conduct the right examination. The only thing that must be considered is if they're paying to a country, is that a country residing in a treaty country, and what's the type of income, and whether they have a presence here. Those are the 3 questions that the examiners can readily determine during an actual examination. But you need to file a request for tax treaty relief. And in the meantime, the withholding taxes on these dividends, on these royalties, they don't get paid to the BIR. Many transactions are withheld because the ruling is not there. And this also impacts on the commercial
But
transactions
if you
as
could
well.
quantify that, again, it's similar to the question I posed earlier to the BIR. If you could quantify the losses somehow, quantify, meaning how much do we lose in terms of transactions by delay, etc.
I think
That bolsters the argument for an updated classification or compensation system.
I'll be very happy, Mr. Chair, to work with Deputy Aranes in quantifying it, but the 30,000 requests for rulings will give that indication. Take what part of that is about the lowering of withholding tax rates to avail of treaty benefits, and then you can already get an idea on the amount that is being withheld or not being collected by the BIR, because a pending application is with them. Mr. Chair, if I may proceed just a few more. There's the right to have the refund process administratively, and administratively, and with the same zeal and fervor that the BIR has when they're trying to collect taxes. When a refund application is there, it's always the last priority, and the BIR worries about whether there's money to be paid to the claimant or not. And of course, we would like to believe that that problem is not the problem of the Bureau. The problem is to determine whether the taxpayer is entitled to this claim that they're filing. And this is a natural consequence, Mr. Chair, of our tax laws as well. For instance, the zero rating of the value-added tax. This, of course, compels the taxpayer to file this claim for refund. If you're the exporter, for instance, you file a claim for refund on your input VAT credits. And in this Tax Reform Act, there's now a suggestion there, or recommendation there, to remove the indirect exporters, or those in the value chain of the exporter, from the zero rating. In other words, they will be subject to value-added tax. I think that is fine for the indirect exporters, because they're able to pass on their VAT cost anyway, and they have a windfall on the input VAT, so they should be happy about that. But the problem is all the input VAT will now be on the side of the exporter. And the question on whether they will be competitive despite their very thin margins, because it's a battle out there in the foreign market, that's going to be the question. That's why if they're not refunded the 12% VAT on their purchases, that could spell the difference between their continuing in business or not. So insofar as the refund process is concerned, Mr. Chair, we humbly suggest, to revisit the process. And if you put a timeline within which for the buyer to refund it, and if they don't come up with that decision, allow the taxpayer to claim it as tax credit to pay for their other taxes. Now, that is not the end on the part of the BIR, because they can still examine. And if the tax credit claim is not correct, then they can disallow the tax credit and still make the assessment on the part of the taxpayer. But in the meantime, everybody is happy, because the exporter gets to claim the tax refund by way of tax credit, and then the buyer does not lose their right to examine the claim of the taxpayer later on. But at least no one is held captive, and the corruption that Deputy Commissioner Oranas is referring to would not need to factor there, because everything is automated somehow. The right of the public to public hearing on new issuances, and of course we have been on the receiving end of that in the previous administration, where they just keep on issuing these regulations left and right without public hearing, and then if you have a problem, take it to court. But if you're a smaller taxpayer who's not able to afford litigation fees, then you just bear it and just do something else, and then try to deal with the issue in a parallel way. Which brings me, Mr. Chair, to our suggestion on to reduce the number of pending requests for rulings with the BIR, is to review what items are really meant to be requested for ruling in the first place. What are those items which the taxpayer does not need to come to the BIR to request a ruling for? And there are many of them, including the application for tax rate reliefs, or even the 40C2 rulings, the tax exemption rulings. The alternative of this is to file an information return with the BIR and say we've done this transaction and we're filing this information return, and then the BIR can use that to examine the taxpayer later to see whether the requisites are there. And in any case, the Supreme Court has already issued a number of decisions that says when the tax code gives an exemption and the tax code does not provide that the taxpayer secure a prior ruling from the BIR, then you don't need to. That ruling cannot be a condition precedent to the claiming of this exemption. So if that review is done, then we can reduce the request for ruling spending, even without deciding yet on the period within which the BIR should reply to that request for ruling. That's all for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Cabrera. Can we hear from Mr. Jem Armovit, Development Alternatives? Yeah, sir, go ahead,
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Chair. These institutional changes being proposed from a development perspective are actually critical ingredients of a move to truly modernize the tax system, especially in the Philippines. I think they are necessary and they should be taken as in consideration of all the other parts of this comprehensive tax reform. the policy changes, most especially. These should form along with the Bill of Rights, the advocate, and perhaps also the upgrading of salaries or even the human resource management of BIR should be taken in consideration of one another. Why? Because these actually, the other moving parts actually have implications on what eventual design, for instance, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights should have. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights, if you look at experience from other countries, you will note that they are crafted in such a way that they are actually very meaningful for pressing needs of the country, tax needs of the country. Having said that, a Bill of Rights, taken again from the perspective of development, should more often than not actually sits a bit from a broader perspective. It should not, it does not normally is not crafted in such a way that it becomes too prescriptive or prescriptive, and that limits the flexibility of the tax administration in implementing or even its operations. That's one point po. Same with the taxpayer's advocate office. For instance, if I may give an example, Mr. Chair, if you look at taxpayer bill of rights across different countries, actually, if you look at more mature taxpayer bill of rights in other countries, you will find a lot of commonalities. One of them is actually the right of a taxpayer, for instance, the right of a taxpayer to pay the right amount of tax. It may seem trivial stating that kind of a right, but it has very deep or vast implications even for the Philippines. And let me give, if I may give the example of refunds, just to drive home the point. Non-giving of refunds or even delaying of refunds actually is actually means that the taxpayer ends up paying more than he should be paying, whether that's denial
So it's a
or
violation of his rights, in other words.
that's a violation of a right. And the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, for example, from a development perspective, the Bill of Rights should be stated in such a way that it's they are enforceable, yes, but they also lead to elaboration of more regulations by the BI to implement these rights. For instance, again, I don't think they should be stated in a very prescriptive way that actually impinge on the operational flexibility of the tax administration. Thank you.
You, Sir Movit. Is there anyone else in the body who would like to comment on these bills before we leave it? My idea is to create a working group to thresh out all the details and ask for more information, because I realize there's a lot of taxpayers in this room. So, and in the larger sense, all of these measures affect affect all of us actually. So, we'll welcome comments. Yeah, Attorney Ms. Abordo of PEZA. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would just like to present our comments on behalf of 3,900 PESA registered enterprises.
This is about the VAT issue already.
Yes,
You're
yes, Your Honor,
jumping the
from
line to.
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
This is about the taxpayer assistance.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Ms. Abordo.
Okay, okay.
So
later.
if it's related to taxpayer rights and the SSL proposal, then please all means go ahead. But
Okay,
if you're going to talk
defer
about
for later.
the VAT issues,
Okay,
there'll be a
later.
time for that. no?
Okay, later,
Yeah.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So anyone else would care to comment before we leave the topic? Yeah, Director Lita.
May I just respond on the earlier statement that the salaries under the Executive Order 201 is not yet at a certain point competitive to the private sector. We note that before we issued this Executive Order 201 and we even proposed it to the Congress, we've already conducted a compensation and benefit study benchmarking salaries of the government personnel to the market data rate corresponding to the private sector. And based on just looking at one position, accountant 1, the salary of an accountant in the private sector is already equivalent to at least 83% of the salaries of the private sector. And if we'll consider that the total guaranteed compensation, which includes the mid-year bonus and the performance-based bonus, it's already 100% of the private sector based on the market data we've gathered under the compensation and benefits survey. And in response also to the statement that the PAO, the lawyers, the prosecutors are already exempted from the salary standardization, we note that these are not this and these personnel are still within the salary standardization. What Congress did was to increase the salary grade level of the position, but not exempting them from the salary standardization. So what?
So that's one option.
Yes,
That's one
that's
option
another
that
option
we can do.
to match the corresponding position to the salary grade that is comparative to the functions being performed by the tax revenue officers.
That's a good point. But my question, it's good that the DBM is doing that and benchmarking with the private sector. But I'm wondering if you've benchmarked to other government agencies who give better compensation, like the Insurance Commission, like the SEC, like the Bangko Sentral. And because yun ang yun in real life, yun ang competition nila, di ba? You'll have young lawyers wanting to work in the government, but then choosing not to work in the BIR because of the institutions mentioned, siya yung pinakamababa.
Yes,
Meron ba tayong study sa ganyan?
actually, it's already very alarming because the while we cannot anymore object because there's a law already granting them salary standardization law exemption. The standard rates of the BSP, for example, is already uh, more than 300% of the salary being received by the President of the Republic of the Philippines. So and the SEC is also
Sino yan? Sino yan? Yung
the BSP governor
receives
the-
a salary 300% of the President of the Philippines.
Yes, and then the SEC is also higher than the President of the Philippines, and the Insurance Commission is almost the same as the salary of the President of the Philippines. So we would like to just note for the
Mababa naman ang sweldo ng Presidente ng Pilipinas.
yes, because under the Constitution it should be fixed by law. So that's it.
Why should we be alarmed if the salaries are 3 times or double what the Constitution provides, which is not, I mean, when you show it to other people from other countries, they laugh. And they say, who can properly serve under that level?
But well, again, based on the
Anyway,
principles of
yeah, Director, what
SSL,
we'd like to ask from you, it would help us very much, is maybe aggregate figures as to compensation in these agencies that you mentioned, and so we have something basis for comparison.
yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr.
So any
Chair.
other? I think
Yeah.
Mr. Jorge Corpus of the chairperson of the PCSO. Sir, this is the discussion on the SSL and the Tax Assistance Office, Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Hindi wala pa tayo dun sa we will get to the so you wanted to comment on the bills. Okay, so again, wala nang
Mr.
comments
Chair.
dun sa
Mr. Chair, just with your
Yeah.
indulgence, Mr. Chair,
Ma-
just for our enlightenment, can I ask the director from DBM, because my understanding is PESA has previously been exempted from the salary standardization,
why don't you ask your seatmate?
and then they were removed from it,
Okay.
and then I wanted to understand
Why they were
why.
removed?
And whether if the
If he knows
BIR
it.
is
Yeah, if he
exempted
knows.
from salary standardization, whether that can also happen to the BIR.
If they're exempted, can they be removed?
Yes,
Basically.
later,
Okay.
yeah.
If he knows, yeah, Director.
Well, I don't have the facts straight right now, but there are some agencies which are SSL exempt, which are now wanting to be covered by the SSL because of the Executive Order 201. Because under the SSL exemption, they have to have their compensation and position classification system approved by the President. So if it's not been approved, it remains stagnant, and it does not go up when the SSL covered agencies are salaries have increased. So
Okay.
that's my thinking of the reason for PESA.
Okay. Okay, we'll leave this topic and we'll go to the next topic. The next item on the agenda is, yeah, we can take up the bills on the affecting the PCSO and the other income taxes on horse racing. So there we can recognize Chairman Corpus. Sir,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good morning po. Thank you for inviting PCSO. On the Senate bill, tax reform for acceleration and inclusion, the proposed bill is that to impose 20% tax on the price fund, winning, na panalo. Kwento lang po. Last night was 6:45 draw. Ang jackpot price was 132,358,352. In 2 days sale, kumita po ang gobyerno ng 35,694. Wala pong nanalong jackpot sa 132. This is being drawn 3 times a week. Now, if we are to impose 20% dun sa manalo, ang take home na lang niya will be 106 million out of 132 million. That
Kawawa
is
naman po.
minus 26 million.
Kawawa naman po siya.
The point here is, bakit po kumita ng 35 million yung gobyerno in 2 days? Ang bilip po ng Pilipino, mas malaki ang premyo, mas maraming tumataya. Now, pagka impose natin, not knowing that there is already a tax on that 132 million, nabawasan na po natin ng 5% price tax. Na pre-tax na po natin yung jackpot price. So, maapektuhan po ang marketability ng ating games. My job is to protect the institution and our games. Ayoko po mabawasan ang tiwala ng Pilipino sa Lotto. Pag nabawasan po, mahirap po natin itayo. And PCSO is the number one charity provider of the government. Lahat po ay napupunta sa medical health program ng ating gobyerno. So ito pong sa halagang 20 pesos na tinaya ng Pilipino, 6 na piso po ay napunta na sa charity. Aside from that, kung na yung premyo, jackpot, there's already a pre-tax of 5% prize fund. And aside from that, PCSO is we are paying we are mandatory contributions. We are, for the year 2016 alone, PCSO paid 4.9 billion plus for the mandatory contributions, 10 Republic Acts, and 4 executive orders. Over and above the documentary stamp tax na lahat ng laro ng PCSO. Now, if we will impose a 20% on the winning jackpot ng mga mananalo, mawawalan po, mahirap po i-market ang laro. Nandito na po tayo sa taas. In fact, we expanded other games of PCSO, yung ating small town lottery. Kung lahat yan impose natin tax, ang paniniwalaan na ng Pilipino na sila na ang tumutulong sa gobyerno, na dapat ang gobyerno ay tinutulungan natin ang mamayang Pilipino. That's how I look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand where you're coming from, no. But siguro yung thinking kasi nung behind this bill. Well, first of all, it's sa gobyerno pa rin naman eh. PCSO gobyerno, so BIR gobyerno din yan. So it's just from one pocket to another. That's the reality there. And the real threshold question siguro is whether it will affect behavior of the bettors, no. And I guess we have to look at best practices here and abroad also to see, because I think tayo lang atang nag-exempt if I'm not mistaken, no. I could be wrong, and please present the evidence to the contrary if it exists. If there are jurisdictions like us who fully exempt the winnings, because I understand what you're saying. The PCSO contributes a lot of money to the public and to the government. That's true. and there are many legislative mandates. Pero yun nga, it just seems strange that we're taxing people who work, all the people in this room, all the employees who work very hard, and maybe 1 or 2 days of the week, that money that they earn goes to the government. But someone who plays a game of chance and maybe does not exert too much effort, except maybe the thought process or good feng shui, I don't know. But siya naman, exempt siya. So parang hindi makatarungan, from me, that's from my standpoint. Again, please feel free to play devil's advocate or argue with that viewpoint. That's precisely why we're here in this committee, having this hearing now. Can we ask the Department of Finance and the Bureau of Internal Revenue to give us their comments regarding these bills?
Mr. Chair, I think from an overall perspective, relative to our package, this proposal is very equitable. This is a windfall earning, as you mentioned, a very passive earning that is tax exempt currently, compared to the millions who work hard but are taxed higher. So I think from an equitable, progressive standpoint, this is a very good measure, which in fact we included as taxable under our package. I note two maybe relatively minor concern. One is there is, of course, in your proposal a threshold of 1 million, wherein winnings below 1 million are not taxable. I think this is going to be good from a tax administration perspective, because it is also very difficult to find out who are all the thousands of winners who win small ones, and that may not be worth the effort. On the other hand, of course, from a purely progressive tax system, we also have to look into these winnings, which can be also windfall for some people. So I think we need to basically balance that and maybe revisit the threshold of 1 million.
Do you have a suggestion?
At this point,
Do you have a
I would
suggestion?
have to...
Maybe we look at the date of how many prizes. Ilan po ba yung premyo nyo na below 1 million, ho? Chairman?
Yung small town lottery sa halagang piso, you win 800 pesos.
Ilan po yung estimate nyo sa taya? Ilan yung premyo na 1 million pababa? May datos ho ba tayo doon?
I'll just
Sige,
babalik
get
ko na
back to
lang
us
po
na
sa
lang, ho.
inyo.
Sige, salamat.
I think, Mr. Chair, that would be a good data that we can look at. How
Yeah.
many are the winners at
Okay.
various thresholds?
Sige, we'll wait for that data.
Let's
We
say
need, I think,
below 1,000 to 100,000,
there
1
has to be a
million.
basis for a threshold.
Yes. We have not
balancing
looked
tax
at that,
administration,
but we
etc.
would welcome having a chance to look at that to advise you better.
Okay.
My other last point is under Republic Act 1169, there is already the 5% withholding from the prize fund. We just want to perhaps in the technical working group seek clarity as to whether there will be overlaps with this 5%. Our initial opinion is that the 20% is really the tax on the taxpayer or on the person, which should not be in conflict with the 5% withholding on the prize fund. But this is, I think, one relatively minor area that we have to revisit to avoid any perception that we are
How much is the collection from the prize fund?
Maybe PCSO would have the data, but we were told that
Dumadaan sa DOF yun?
the average in the last from 2013 to 2015 is around 12 billion.
A year?
That is
Is that a year?
Yeah, a year. And yes.
Anyway, you can give us that data. Once you retrieve it, Yusek. Can we ask the BIR what their position is on these measures? Commissioner Dulay, Attorney Aranas, DepCom Aranas.
We'll provide,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Yeah. In the meantime, I gave the floor to Commissioner Dulay.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have some figures here. For the period 2012 up to 2016. For 2016 specifically, we collected the withholding on final tax on the prize fund of 1.14 billion. For 2015, it's about 1 billion. 2014, it's about 872 million. 2013, 834 million. And 2012, 688 million. These are the withholding tax collected on the final tax on the prices. We can provide more
Is
data.
it good policy to tax the winners, given that there's already a tax on the prize fund? What's your opinion there?
Yes, it contributes to the revenues of the government, so that
Yeah,
we can pay
I mean,
more.
from a justice,
We can pay
from
more.
From a justice standpoint, is it double taxation or?
I don't think so, Mr. Chair. It's
Who pays the prize fund?
it has a different purpose. It's from the ticket sales, the prize fund. Oh, yes.
Okay. Is that does that summarize the position of the department and the bureau? Thank you. Thank you. Can we now hear from the Philippine Racing Commission, Mr. Marcelino Torres, the Chief Accountant of PhilRacom, sir?
Good morning, honorable. Good morning, honorable chairman of this committee. The Philippine Racing Commission has considered finance and taxation as fundamental area of concern and improvement in the horse racing industry. For the information of this honorable committee, at present, the horse racing industry is subject to the following taxes: 10% tax on winnings, documentary stamp tax. In this regard, we think the repeal of Section 4 of Republic Act 1169, specifically the provision with respect to the exemption of PCSO-sponsored horse races from the payment of taxes, will have no effect, as the same is already subject to tax, specifically Section 126 of the National Internal Revenue Code of the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Thank you.
Yung 10% tax ho, sino nagbabayad ho nun? Yung nabasa nyo ho?
The 10% tax is withheld by the racing club from the owner of the race horses.
Okay. Thank you. Can we hear from Mr. Magbo, Mr. Ramon Magbo, the racing manager of the Manila Jockey Club? Sir?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. That is true. It is withheld by the company. I'm speaking in behalf of the racing club, so it's mandatory that it's withheld already 10%, and we remit the said amount to the BIR on a regular basis, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments on this topic? Yeah, Chairman Corpus, care to comment before we leave the topic? Yeah. You'll study it further.
Good afternoon, sir. Attorney In
Yeah,
Chong.
please, for the record, for the
Yes, sir.
just identify yourself and your position. And
Attorney In
organization.
Chong, Manager of Legal Department, PCSO. On your query, sir, regarding the imposition of 20% final tax on winnings, vis-a-vis the 5% price tax, may I refer you, sir, the body to the PCSO charter, which provides in part the horse races and sale of tickets in said sweepstakes shall be exempt from all taxes, except that each ticket shall bear a 12 centavo internal revenue tax, and from the total prize fund as provided from the proceeds of sale of tickets, there shall be deducted an amount equivalent to 5% of such total prize fund in lieu of the income tax collected from sweepstakes prize winners. That is the specific provision in our charter. So, to tax the price for 5% and another 20% on the winners will constitute taxation on the same.
Ang position nyo is either or. Dapat one or
Yes,
the
sir.
other. Okay. Thank you. Can we ask for the figures of the collections or the remittances? Meron na ba tayo nun? Figures na niremit nila. Can we ask for historical figures on how much has been remitted as 5%? I'm sure you have it in your records. We don't think I need it right now, but in the next
Yes, sir. We'll do
the
that.
next week or so, please. Salamat. We'll if there are no other comments on this topic, we'll go to another. Yeah. Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just add some basic information about the 55% price fund. So out of the gross receipts, 2% is deducted as the cost of printing. And then from there, we get 55% as the prize fund, which is used for the payment of prizes, including those for owners, including for the sellers of winning tickets. So that is 55%, charity fund is 30%, and operating fund is 15%. So the prize fund tax of 5%, the base of that type of tax is the prize fund, and it is being paid by PCSO. The
You know?
proposed
It is what?
the proposed tax on winnings should be based on the winnings of the individual, of the winner it's himself. So there will be no double taxation so far because they have different tax base and taxpayer. And if you look at the taxation of all types of gambling, for Lotto and Sweepstakes, they are exempt under Section 24 on income tax. The horse racing winnings are taxed under Section 126 of the tax code. That
Use
is
the mic.
10%.
Can you speak into the mic, please? Yeah.
That is 10%. Volume. Both Lotto, STL, Sweepstakes, horse racing have all DST, documentary stamp tax. Casino does not have DST. Casino is also taxed at 20% final 20% final withholding tax if it exceeds 10,000. So for uniformity and revenue considerations, the Lotto and Sweepstakes are the ones left out, exempt from income tax. So in principle, they should be taxed, but based on the Senate bill, we have also some reservations on the 1 million because all others, 10,000 and above, other prices will be imposed the 20% final withholding tax, and those less than 10,000 will be included in the gross income and subject to the regular income tax of the taxpayer. But in the bill, those less than 1 million will be exempt. So for parity reasons or for uniformity reasons, we believe that all types of income on gambling and winnings on gambling should be similarly taxed. That's all yours.
Thank you. Any other comments before we leave? No more? Okay. Let's go to the next topic. We can go to the VAT It's part of the DOF package on low-cost socialized housing and money remittance. Maybe we'll give the floor to Yusek Chua to explain these provisions. Wait, can we have a 5-minute break? Sorry, health break for liquidity reasons. Thank you, thank you. See you back in 5 minutes. We'll call the meeting back to order. We'd like to recognize Senator Miguel Zubiri, who's also an author of the bill to exempt the BIR from the salary standardization. Thank you, Senator, for coming. Can we hear now from the DOF to explain their proposals contained in Package 1, specifically with respect to low-cost, socialized housing, money remittances, as well as direct exports? Yeah, in your preferred order, Yusek.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the committee. I would like to organize my discussion first on the VAT by first presenting the package very quickly so that the big picture is not forgotten. And then I will zero in on the problems on the VAT and our proposed solution. In our package 1, we are actually addressing 4 key problems in the tax system. The first is the lowering of personal income tax, because they have not been adjusted for 20 years and the tax rates in the region are going down. And I think this is due justice to the wage earners who really, primarily the wage earners who really bear the biggest burden of the income tax. The second is we need to broaden the VAT base so that we arrive at a more broad-based, fair tax system. And eventually, once we have broadened the base, we are actually open to lowering the VAT rate. But we have to first ensure that the VAT system is fair for everyone. And the third and fourth one are adjustments in the automobile and oil excise, because these are very progressive and have also positive effect on health, the environment, and on congestion. Given this package, we propose to the committee to consider the VAT with respect to this whole package, because I think the whole idea of the tax system is really to simplify and to arrive at a more equitable tax system. On the VAT, we have one of the most complicated VAT system in the region. Currently, our count is that in the tax code, we have 59 lines of exemptions in the tax code. And outside the tax code, we counted since 1988, when the VAT was created, 84 additional laws, special laws outside the tax system that provide number of exemptions from the VAT, or the either exempted or different treatment for the VAT zero rating. So that is a total of more than 140 tax exemptions. Compare that with Indonesia, that has 37 lines of exemptions, and Thailand 35, Vietnam 25, and Malaysia 14. And given this, no wonder why our VAT rate is quite high. This is at 12% compared to as low as 7% in Thailand. And as a case in point, both countries, Philippines and Thailand, we collect around 4.2% of our GDP in VAT revenues. However, we have to do it at 12% VAT to achieve the same efficiency, while Thailand only has 7%. So our objective really is to address the complexity in the VAT system that has led to a large number of leakages. And of course, this digression is basically the underlying reason why tax evasion and corruption are reportedly very high. Mr. Chair, earlier you asked about what is the amount lost to corruption. This is a very difficult number to estimate given the clandestine nature of this transaction. But we or should I say, a third party estimated this, the World Bank in particular in 2013, looked at the tax gap in the last decade. And what they found was that from 2000 to 2012, BIR is not collecting some 726 billion, which is the gap from the potential collection had there be 100% efficiency. When the DOF, before my time, re-estimated this, they found that this has actually improved by a third. So the gap has now fallen to 486 billion. And the reason for this are twofold. One is we really have a complex tax system wherein the numerous amount of exemptions and special treatment provides fertile ground for discretion, and therefore the evasion and corruption that is rampantly being reported. Of course, the other problem is the weak tax administration, which BIR and BOC are seriously addressing. And both, I think, feed into each other. The simpler the tax system that we have, the less exemptions, the lower the VAT rate over time, then this allows BIR and BOC to actually improve their audit process and for taxpayers to comply better. So that is why in the proposed tax reform, we would really want to clean up the VAT system. So that is the problem. Now, we are proposing, as Mr. Chair, you know, to remove most of the exemptions outside raw food, education, and health. And because of public clamor, and also we recognize the need to protect senior citizens and PWD, this is one area that we are proposing not to remove their discount, neither their exemption from the VAT. However, to control the leakage, we are proposing eventually to use a national ID system. Now, there are two items that are, I think, of topic for today. The first one is the exemption of construction materials alongside the exemption of socialized or low-cost housing from the VAT, and the especially for housing for disaster-stricken areas. The second one is the problem about limiting VAT zero rating. So let me quickly touch the 2 points. We recognize the need to provide housing for the poor and the vulnerable, but we do not think the VAT system and the exemptions provided to low-cost housing and economic or cheaper housing is the way to go, because we are concerned about leakages that may arise. Once a taxpayer has the opportunity to declare both VATable sales and exempt sales, and in the case of export sector, zero-rated sale, it is really very difficult to do a proper audit. There could be padding from one to another to reduce the VAT liability. We, of course, cannot single out any taxpayer for this matter, but the fact remains is that had we have a perfect VAT system, we should be collecting 12% of VAT as a share of our GDP, but we only collect 4.2, which is only a third. So somewhere in the system, we really have to correct, and the policy recommendation that we have is to drastically simplify the VAT system and to use the budget side precisely to help the poor and vulnerable. And we will commit to work with the housing agencies to provide suitable subsidies to directly target those in need of housing, instead of using the VAT system, which is already extremely complicated today. On the limiting of the zero rating to direct exporters, we recognize that in a real and effective VAT system, only direct exporters should be zero rated. That means they can claim a refund on their inputs. And that means when they export and when the good is imported by another country and charge a VAT, there will be no double taxation. And we recognize this. And I would like to make it extremely clear that the position of the Department of Finance is to do two things in parallel: limit the zero rating to direct exporters, but at the same time provide prompt cash refund to these exporters so that there will be no loss in their cash flow or the competitiveness of their export. We will not do one ahead of the other. If we cannot do the VAT refund properly, we will not do the zero rating. And I think this is only fair. Our main concern is that if we extend the zero rating to indirect exporters, their agents or suppliers, these same indirect providers also cater to the domestic market. And again, once you have a system wherein they can charge VATable sales, exempt sales, and zero rating, you open the floor to basically a lot of discretion, and therefore leakages that may come because you charge more to the VATable sales so that you can get credit or lower your VAT liability, or you charge more to the zero rating sale so that you can get a refund. We think that this is a system that has become too complicated and also contradictory to an effective VAT system. And given this, as we speak, the Department of Finance and a number of agencies will be convening the tax technical working group on VAT refund to really study this on how we can provide an efficient and prompt refund based on cash. And we think that this is a far better system once people have adjusted, rather than the current system that provides some support or leeway to exporters, but affects the entire economy in the terms of lower taxes that could be potentially collected. Mr. Chair, this is all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chua. Oh, we'll talk about the housing. You didn't comment about money remittance.
Mr. Chair, this is I believe, a simpler topic. Initially, under the tax code, our reading is that the money transfer is not explicitly exempted, nor is it explicitly vatable. The lawyers and the tax experts agree that since this is not explicitly exempted, then this should be vatable. In fact, that is the prevailing opinion. However, this
Vatable
is
na siya at present.
vatable, yes, but
But
this is
it's
a
not being
gray.
collected.
It is a gray area,
It's not being collected.
not being fully collected. That
Okay.
is why we wanted it to be clear in the tax code.
So we
That
don't
is
have
why
to actually amend the law.
we do not need
to
to.
collect the tax.
BIR advised that this can be done through regulation.
Go ahead, Senator Zubir. Go ahead, please.
Clarification. When you say money remittances, for example, if a worker from Saudi Arabia sends $1,000 to his family, you're saying the $1,000 should be less VAT na? Kakaltasan ng VAT yan?
Yes. Your Senator, the fee is on the transfer, not the remittance amount.
So that the charge is on the transfer.
Right.
Okay. Just a clarification.
Yes, on the service of transferring money, because banks have charges on that, but
To say the charges, the fees and charges will be charged 12% VAT. But that's also passed on, di ba?
that is passed on, yes, like
so that's
any
still
other
passed on, yeah.
consumption tax. Yes.
So, if it's for $1,000, let's compute. For $1,000, if you send it through money, magkano percentage yan pag 5%, di ba? Magkano yung remittance collection? I mean, yung charge pag remit. Would you know, Yusek?
Mr. Chair, there are, I think, remittance companies here. We can ask them. But I think we have to distinguish between the foreign and the domestic remittance. Those coming from abroad are not within our tax regime. So that is not
So
counted.
the example of Senator Zubiri would not be
From
covered.
outside to inside, that is not part of our regime. Maybe Saudi Arabia will charge something, but that is
So you're talking about only internal remittances?
internal money transfer domestically, which is currently taxable. So we just want to make it clear that there is
Alright.
really a VAT for this service.
For OFWs, they're exempt under.
Well, not exempt, but what I'm saying is other countries' policy will be followed, not our VAT. If the
because
Saudi
they're out of your jurisdiction.
out
they're
of our
your taxing
jurisdiction.
jurisdiction.
Our jurisdiction is only domestic transfers.
Okay. Does that satisfy Senator Zubiri? Okay. So. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yeah.
Honorable Chairman, I
You're
just
commenting on
wanted
which
to-
one? Which one? Which of the three topics?
I'll just answer the question of Senator Mixubiri. The normal charge of a non-bank remittance company abroad is between 8 to 10 US dollar. So, but when you go through a bank transfer, they will charge you 2 times. They charge you when you send money out, and then when you arrive here, the money will be deducted again. So it's between 300 to 500% more expensive than you send it through a money remittance company that is working abroad. So yun ho ang sagot dun sa question nyo, Senator.
Just to clarify, you're referring to money sent by an OFW from abroad through a bank?
So there are 2 ways that you can send money.
Yeah, but you're saying
One
when it's
is
done
to-
through a bank, you're taxed twice? Is that correct?
No, you're not
You
taxed
said-
twice. You
yeah.
have to pay 2 times of fees.
2 fees.
Yeah. Isa ho from when you send the money out, and when you arrive here, the bank will deduct again another fee.
Okay. Thank you. So, let's take up the socialized housing issue first. We have Ms. Keith Tan of HUDCC. Where's this person?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Avi Tolentino from HUDCC.
Okay.
Mis- Yes, sir. Honorable Chair and Honorable Senator Subiri, I'd like to confirm what the USEC Carl of DOF stated a while ago, that we are actually in coordination with them in light of these proposals because initially when we heard that there was a proposal to remove yung VAT exemption of locals and socialized, medyo yung aming shelter agencies medyo nag-react. But this has explained to us that it's something that there's a bigger picture, that there will be a personal income tax and issue, and there will be offsetting measures. So we have actually met with our key shelter agencies, and when I say that, I mean the Pag-ibig Fund, Home Guarantee Corporation, Social Housing Finance Corporation, HLURB, the National Home Mortgage Finance Corporation, and the National Housing Authority. And they have made initial observations. For instance, dun sa Home Guarantee Corporation, they're worried na baka magkaroon ng downtrend dun sa takeouts ng mga development, housing development, and therefore medyo hihina yung kanilang operations. And there's also an issue na baka they might have to increase their premiums. For NHMFC, the same, they're worried about lower takeouts. For the NHA, they're worried about the impact on their socialized housing development, especially in particular to the aspect of affordability. For the Social Housing Finance Corporation, they mentioned two things. One is that there will be an impact dun sa kanilang ability to deliver the same amount of loans as opposed to the same budget because of the increase in the cost due to the VAT. And also they raised the issue on the impact on cooperatives, kasi parang masasama rin sa magkakaroon ng removal from VAT exemption yung cooperatives. Apparently some of their originators are cooperatives. On the part of the Pag-ibig Fund, they mentioned that this proposal might affect their loan takeouts, and moreover they said that meron palang remittance aspect itong HDMF for Pag-ibig members who are outside the country, so baka may impact din doon. So but we've explained it also in light of yung personal income tax rebracketing, Mr. Chair, Honorable Subiri. And we have constituted actually a working group within our sector to find out what are the tax implications vis-a-vis, one, the budgets of the respective agencies, and second, yung affordability levels ng aming products. So hindi pa yun tapos, babalik sila, but more importantly, we want to work with the DOF in relation dun po sa offsetting measures. Kasi for us, to our minds, if we're really gonna do this, and for the bigger picture, talagang babaguhin natin yung tax system natin, meron talagang magkakaroon impact sa cost ng housing, and when we do that, we have to be ready with the offsetting measures. The only fear of the housing sector at the moment is that it's possible na baka mauna yung VAT exemption, removal of VAT exemption, without the corresponding offsetting measures. So we're working on those numbers, Mr. Chair, Honorable Angara. As of the moment, medyo firm yung aming key shelter agencies to insist on the exemption of socialized housing, because we feel that it's the same company as raw food or education or health. And in relation to other types of housing, we're thinking of again pushing for first-time home buyers, yung first-time home buyers bill that was being proposed in the previous Congress, which will exempt some of the amortization payments from being part of the taxable income. So those are the things that are initially.
It's also filed in this Congress. That bill's also been filed.
Okay. Yeah. Maganda po yun, Mr. Chair. So those are the things that we have, but hindi pa namin masabi yung numbers because hindi rin masyadong familiar yung aming mga unang naka-meeting. But we hope to be working closely together with the DOF and with the committee, especially sa technical working group. And and more importantly, in relation to what will be the offsetting measures, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Senator Zubiri, please.
Mr. Chair, I just want to be clarified. No? I'm playing devil's advocate all the time because I may not be a finance expert, but I am a politician, and we're public servants. And removing, correct me if I'm wrong, but removing 12 or including 12%, or removing the tax exemption on socialized housing would increase, basic questions, would increase the value of the home at 12%, correct? Okay. And therefore, when you do the loan, they also have to pay a higher premium, correct? Okay. When you do socialized housing, you're dealing with I guess the poorest of the poor sector, marginal sector, correct? Okay. And therefore, aren't they already tax exempt as it is if they're getting a monthly salary below 20,000 a month? These are the trabajador, mga cargador, mga drivers, jeepney operators, and therefore, whatever we do here today as part of the package, giving them tax exemptions, income tax exemptions, will not affect them. Correct? So, goes down that we're actually going to increase the penalties, or not penalties, increase the payments of this sector of society, and yet, whatever we're supposed to be paying back through these tax exemptions will not affect them. Income tax exemptions. So you say, Carl, I go back to the question, it's a fundamental question. You know, I'd like this administration to succeed. I don't like this administration to fail. But how do we impact that on this sector of society who are already income tax exempt, you say, Carl? So what kind of payback do we give them by increasing their 12% VAT on their houses? Please explain to me how this is going to work.
Mr. Chair, Senator Zubiri, first of all, I think the housing will not increase by 12%, and let me explain why. The low-cost housing is tax exempt. However, the supplies to build the house were bought from a supplier, and the developer paid a VAT on those. And that is input VAT that the developer cannot claim and deduct because the housing is exempt. Therefore, the developer will either absorb it or pass it on in the form of higher price. So let us say half of that is the cost of the supplies. Therefore, the pass on is maybe 6%, but we have to verify. The second is there are two ways to help the poor. No? One is a producer subsidy, which we currently have, which is basically providing the subsidy or the exemption directly to the developer and hope that they can provide 100% pass-through to the ultimate beneficiaries. The other one is a consumer subsidy, wherein the subsidy or the exemption or the amount is provided directly to the poor who will benefit. There is a strong, case for moving towards consumer subsidy, basically using the budget to target who the poor are and give them the money or the subsidy to finance these houses.
Sorry to interrupt, Carl. You said Carl. But are these subsidies in the package?
These are, of course, should be now reflected in the budget. So in the 2018 budget, this is one of our priority to ensure that it is balanced.
Is it not better to put it in the package as well? So
it is a tax package. We were told that we would limit the amendments on the tax code. But of course, we can. But our commitment in the finance is that the tax reform should be accompanied in parallel by the
I think from a
spending
political
reform.
acceptability standpoint, might be wise to
we
include
can-
it.
We can
It's up to
include
you.
it
It's
as a principle under earmarking,
Yeah.
and then the details can be threshed out in the budget.
Okay.
Our main concern, Senator Zubiri, is the leakage, and if you may, I will invite BIR to discuss some of the leakages that we have seen. We think that by limiting the exemptions in the VAT, we can collect far more, and that money can go back to the poor and the vulnerable in bigger amounts. Thank you.
You say, Carl, I just want to be, again, no, let's keep it simple. No, let's keep it simple. Again, I'm not a finance expert. No, let's keep it simple. A house, for example, socialized housing would cost 250,000, or let's say 400,000 in a decent area. 400,000. With this new amendment on the tax package, you are now going to implement a 12% VAT on the sale? It's a simple question, and it's simple mathematics, right? Is that the way it's supposed to be? Is that the way it's supposed to be envisioned under the tax package? Now we will put the 12% sale on the socialized housing of 400,000. So let's make a straight computation. That's 48,000 pesos additional. So they'll be paying 448,000. Correct, right? Kasi kukunin nyo yan eh. Hindi naman yan. That's a pass on. That VAT, the owner will pay for that.
Sir,
Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Senator, the owner will pay 12%, but not on the same 250, because as I mentioned, this 250 includes a padded amount of the input VAT that could not be passed on, and therefore these are passed on, I believe, in the form of higher price. If I may explain, Senator, a simpler example. Sari-sari store is currently exempt on the sale that it provides to buyers, no? But the sari-sari store bought supplies from SM, for instance, and paid VAT, but it cannot pass on the VAT to the buyers or its customers. Therefore, the sari-sari store will have to absorb it as part of its cost, which is unlikely given the business nature, or pass it on in the form of higher price. So instead of charging just 10 peso, it might choose to charge 12 pesos so that it can recoup the input VAT. So what I'm saying is, although the taxpayer in the housing will pay additional 12%, there's also a readjustment in the price, in the the base price of the house, because now the developer can do the VAT accounting properly.
But you said, Carl, that's really nice in paper and theory, with all due respect, sir. But in practice, it doesn't happen. It's just a straight out VAT. They're regulated already by HADSI. There's a socialized house pricing eh. May pricing yan eh. So they'll maximize that pricing. If they say this house, socialized housing is between 250 to 400, they'll maximize at 400. Ganun na yun eh. Nandyan na yun eh. So magsa-straight out 12% yan. So ang babayad niyan, yung bibili ng low-cost housing, which again, he cannot afford. That's why he's buying low-cost housing in the middle of the bundok somewhere in, I don't know where, in Montalban, Rizal, and all that, just to be able to buy his own house. Punto ko dyan is, at the end of the day, the poor will absorb this because hindi naman sila makakapakinabang sa income tax exemption. And again, no, Mr. Chairman, we've been together with Senator Cynthia Villar and others. Whenever the DSWD presents us the numbers on the 4-piece program, we have a huge 4-piece program. We spend 70 billion pesos a year. It has not drastically brought down our problem of poverty. It has not. So I don't know what new package are we going to give the people that will help bring down poverty or eradicate poverty in our country. That's the point. This is kasi, my apologies, no, and I just say this because directly affected yung mahihirap. I come from a region that there's a lot of poor people, and that's why the NPAs are very strong, and that's why we went back again to the problem with the NPAs war zone, because they shot 3 of their soldiers in Malaybalay, Bukidnon. So, their complaint is they're overly taxed, they're not getting any support from government, and hence they're going to go up the mountains. Additional pa, itong problema na yun sa mining, you'll have 100,000 jobless people, pupunta yan sa illegal numbers, pupunta yan sa drugs, pupunta yan sa bundok, at magtutulisan na lang. So, I'm just very worried that we overly burden people one bang and one go with taxes. I don't know, what's going to happen there. That's why I have to be really convinced that there will be, together with my chairman, that there will be actual effects on the people when we push this tax package. The last person who pushed for a tax package lost the national elections. He was called the VAT man. It's funny, no? But it wasn't funny at the time when I talked to him and he lost the election. So that's the political cost. That's the problem. Of course, VAT is doing well now for economy, and again, he gets the last laugh because now he says that at least it was able to build up the economy. But maybe, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman,
should we adjourn the hearing?
Di naman. Di naman. Kasi kakampi din natin yung DOF, di ba?
Because
So,
I got scared with your statements.
tama, ikaw pala chairman na yun. And the poor guys are re-electionist. You don't crucify my good brother and the seatmates. That's why we're here to help him. Actually, we're playing good cop, bad cop. No, I'm just kidding. But really, we have to be very careful. We really have to be very careful. Maybe a better idea to do what Thailand did. If you want no exemptions, fine. Bring down the VAT rate. Make it 8%. No tax exemptions for everybody. Baka pumayag pa. Or 7%. No tax exemptions for everybody. But we gotta show the people we're doing something. We're bringing at least some taxes down. My worry lang kasi, you said Carl and Clint, no? Attorney Clint. Kasi Manua Manta. We're from Negros. Same problem. We have a lot of poor people in Negros. Is the ability of this tax reform package to actually make those benefits who will actually be given the priority and how will it be given to them? I don't see it because the 4-piece is not working. It's not working. I think we need jobs. We need ease of doing business. We need corporations. We need plants. We need business. We cannot scare business away. That's how I see it. Kasi chairman ako ng trade and industry. And I'm passing the ease of doing business so we can encourage more people to come in. So that more jobs means more income. Diba? Yan ang pagtingin ko. Maybe I'm a bit of a Republican, no? Baka siguro Trump ako, pero hindi ako Trump. Pero yan ang gusto ko mangyari. Palakasin natin yung business base instead of killing them. And then we create more jobs. It's a domino effect. Kaya napakalaga yung infrastructure program which hindi pa naro-roll out because if that infrastructure program of the government rolls out, we'll be creating tens of thousands of jobs across the countryside. So you have to understand where I'm coming from, no? And hindi pa kami nag-uusap privately ni Yusek Carl. We will do that together with the group, but I'll be remiss in my duties if I don't come out with my sentiments today. It's madugo ito eh. Mahal ko si Presidente pero madugo ito. And we're the ones who are, we're the ones who are in TV, in radio, defending the government's programs. So, Attorney Aranas, would you like to care to comment on the issue? Just this issue alone on the housing. Am I correct that if it's 400,000, they'll have to pay 48,000 straight off the bat?
Sir, if I may, sir. Tax is not really a popular topic. You have to understand that the wisdom behind this reform package is really well studied by the group of the Undersecretary Carl Chua, sir. No. Now, but if you look at it, sir, I would just like to share, sir, from a different perspective of where I think they are coming from. You have to understand, sir, that if indeed socialized housing is, let's say, is exempt, if I were to sell it to you, it's gonna be, if it's a price at 100, it will be 112 for you, right? Because all the materials that I purchased, may VAT ako dyan eh, na I-absorb. That's why I'm pricing it at 100 because I have to recover. Of course, it's very natural for a business person. Now, allowing the VAT system to enter, sir, being input-output na yan, and since I'm already a VAT taxpayer, if I'm the, correct me if I'm wrong, there are developers here, no? I do help with your rulings. I give you exemptions, but look at the rationale here, sir. No, if I am allowed to recover the input tax that has been passed on to me, let's say at 40, kunyari, let's say just peg a price at 40, the VAT charged to me is like 40 pesos worth of my cost of 100. That's why I'm passing it at 100. But if I'm allowed to recover at 40, I may be able to sell it at what? At 70 times 12. Is that it? That's where I think the BUF is coming from, sir. There's recoupment kasi under the VAT system. Now,
Sorry, can I interrupt,
yes, sir.
DepCom?
Yes, sir.
But in the example of Yusek Carl of the Sari Sari store, you're saying he would refund his input VAT, but he's probably not within the VAT umbrella, di ba? He would not make the VAT, di ba?
Sir, it's a passed on, sir, in form of higher prices. Kasi
Yeah. No, but the
whatever-
rationale was if he's given the chance, he'll claim it as input VAT, di ba? But he's not covered by the VAT umbrella. Oo. So it wouldn't apply, di ba?
Wala, sir. Walang
That
input.
that reasoning wouldn't apply.
Since I took up everything. For example, if I'm a business person, I'm engaged in sari-sari store, I made purchases. May VAT pinas on sa akin eh. So it forms part of my cost. I cannot recover the VAT anymore. But if I'm a VAT taxpayer, every time I sell, di ba may output ako doon? I can deduct my input. Then I have a recovery. So I can adjust my price range because my cost is now not as high. Because the taxes is not part of my cost now. So since it's not part of my cost, my selling price will be cheaper. That's the natural consequence, sir. I'm just trying to explain to you from a different perspective na bakit it won't really be at 100 anymore. It can be at 70 or it depends on on your purchase of supplies, sir.
But Attorney Clint, we're trying to remove exemptions. So the DOF is trying to remove exemptions. So whenever they buy all their inputs to build that house, everything will be charged VAT. Correct?
Sir, actually that's happening right now.
Correct.
You see,
So-
the problem is because of their exemptions, in a manner, if you look at it from a different side, while it helps them, it does not help them kasi nagiging cost nila yung lahat ng pinasa sa kanilang VAT eh. Hindi naman nila masabing, oy, ibebenta ko socialized housing, lahat na ibebenta mo sa akin, wala nang VAT. May VAT, kakainin mo lahat yon. So,
How will it become
it will be
cheaper?
form part of my cost now, sir. So my cost is high. Naturally, I cannot sell it to you at lower my cost. Otherwise, what am I in business for? Sir,
Why
it's
don't we ask the
something that,
developers?
yes, sir.
We
It's
should ask the
something, sir,
developers.
that you might want to look at. I mean, the wisdom behind this being discussed. So, we're very
We
open,
understand. We
sir, to
understand
help.
what you're saying, DEPCOM, no, about the absorption and the non-pass-through, no. But I think we have a lot of people waiting to give their comments. So we have their names here. We'll hear from Mr. Benigno Cabrieto of the National Real Estate Association. After him, Mr. Gorayeb of the CREBA. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Senator Miggs. Our position is, of course, to exclude, to maintain the status quo under the VAT exemption of the socialized and low cost. I think as far as the socialized housing is concerned, I think medyo ka na yan, medyo settled na, no? Even the Department of Finance. But on the low cost, actually yung first of all, the housing is a basic need of man, food, clothing, shelter, di ba? And then yung socialized housing, this is outside of Metro Manila, mga naik, mga ganun eh. But for the ordinary employees like you, nandito ngayon, yung bibilhin nyo, yung economic housing in Metro Manila. So it's your first home is actually an economic housing unit, perhaps a condo, low-cost condo, but it's aspirational, first time for the young employees, newly married. I mean, this is your first home. So if this is your first home, tapos you'll be charged with VAT, let's say basic cost of assuming 2 million housing unit, condo unit plus VAT. I mean, it's a little medyo mabigat yan. It will kill the aspiration of a lot of people in the urban areas. Then the other point of UC Carl, which is the developers can absorb that, the ma-input VAT naman siya eh. But if you unlike a sari-sari store, if you look at the cost the component of the selling price of a housing unit, for every unlike a sari-sari store, materials, profit, and then yung VAT mo is very high, di ba? Yung cost of materials is a very big cost, a very big component in the selling price, kaya malaki ang nasa-save mo. Dito sa amin, it's only in the materials. So if you break down the cost, for every, assuming 100 pesos that you pay for the housing unit, about 5 to 10% goes to the broker's commission. Hindi naman VAT yan, di ba? Wala ka mang input VAT dyan. 5 to 10% sa broker's commission. Another one is the CWT, creditable withholding tax, 6%. Ibabawas mo kaagad yan. And then of course, the cost of money of the developer, assuming he makes about 10% for his overhead and of course, return on investment, no? So this brings down the cost of the labor and the materials to about 70%. In mass housing, in our structure, cost structure, the labor component comprises 50% of the total, if you consider labor and materials, especially on the mass housing. Labor intensive ito eh. Labor intensive yan. So you're only looking at about 30 to 35% cost of materials. So yung 70% na that comprises the selling price, pag ipa-absorb sa developer, hindi ka kaya ng developer yun. Sa 10% niya, ubus na yung profit niya. Walang papasok na dyan. So in other words, this cannot be compared with the sari-sari store. So we still maintain to maintain the status quo because the VAT is a pass-on tax as far as the real estate business is concerned. It is cost. It is the selling price plus VAT. Bihira yung tag dito, yung ina-absorb ng developer yung VAT. So thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear from Mr. Gorayev of the CREVA, Chamber of Real Estate and Builders Association? Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, gentlemen, ladies. Uh, Bottom line here, Mr. Chair, is the 5.7 million housing backlog, the 200,000 housing need a year that will be affected by by this measure. I appreciate the honesty of Yusek Carl when he said about leakages, corruption, etc. But if I may bring you to the realities on the ground, BIR is, of course, and we all agree, is a corrupt agency of government. I'm not talking about Commissioner Dulay now or Carl, but we all know that.
Except mo rin si DepCom Aranas because he's the one left here, oh.
If you will ask me, I will give Commissioner Dulay 10 million pesos monthly salary, considering the responsibilities that the government has placed on his shoulder, if he's not receiving 10 million a month now. But Carl talked about complexity of taxation. The only intention here that I can see is to make the job of Carl a lot easier, because that is the easiest way of doing his job. Collect, collect, collect. How about the leakages? How about the corruption? Why make these poor people, low-income earners, suffer for your inefficiency? We face each other already in the lower house, and you presented the same arguments, but you have not given us anything about the solution on your efficiency and corruption. Pardon me for saying that, but that's the truth, and that's the truth. In fact, if you compromise with BIR, they talk about PR and RP. Laging ape yung RP, yung PR ang pinakamalaki. 90% PR, 10% RP. Yung RP, yung Republic of the Philippines. Yung PR, yun yung public relation. Yun yung lagay. So, again, pardon me, I'm not accusing you now of corruption. But we all know the corruption in BIR and Bureau of Customs. Sana naman yun ang ating pagtuunan ng pansin. Yung araw-araw, billion-billion ang corruption na nawawala. Yung hindi pa pumapasok, yung pumasok na sa gobyerno, ninanakaw pa. Ay ninakaw pa yung hindi pumasok. Ay trillion yun. Trillion.
Sir, sorry, I have to call you to order because there's a measure on the table, and precisely that's to address the perceived corruption at the BIR. And I asked them to quantify the corruption, and we're really taking positive measures, no. But I think the issue, could we stick to the issue at hand, which is the taxes for the real estate?
I'm
and
sorry.
Could you give your position on that? Because
I'm
otherwise, I'll have to.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Please cut short your remarks on the general
all these
frustrations
years,
with government.
all these years
yeah.
we've been talking about changes. We've been talking about reforms. All these years I've been attending Congress hearings for the last 43 years of CREBA, and we're still the same, talking about the same thing. That's why I cannot help myself but say that. But anyway, going back to the measure, what benefit will this give to the government? No, it will not give the government any benefit. It will only create more problem for the low-income earners. Senator Subiri is very correct in saying that. That's very small compared to what we are losing. That's basically, Mr. Chairman, is our position. Spare these low-income earners from this measure. The Tax Management Association mentioned about the local government taxing power. We are already very tax sector. Local government are like loose cannons when they impose taxes on real properties. And the way they compute is just like Carl. Under the law, they're limited to 20%, and yet I do not know what kind of arithmetic they're using. They can increase real estate assessment as much as 3,000%, 4,000%. So we appeal to DOF, although this is not the first time that they have uh, really uh, tried to remove this exemption from the housing sector. Developers are already mandated. Actually, we can call that as class legislation, Mr. Chairman. The developers are mandated to contribute. Now it's 15% of their main project to socialize. That is already class legislation in itself. And yet, the main purpose of government is to make these housing units more affordable. Because if they use these people will not be assisted or helped by government and the private sector, they will not be able to buy that house or home that they need, and it will only increase the already growing number of housing backlog, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gurayev. Can we hear from the REBAP, or the Real Estate Brokers Association of the Philippines? Who will speak on your behalf? You have three representatives here. Mr. Mercado, Ms. Aguinaldo, Mr. Tapanco. In the interest of time, we'll just ask one of you to speak for the association, please.
Nick Tapanco, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. We are talking of VAT exemption in real estate transactions. Although presently, with the amendment in effect of the Revenue Regulation 1605, the present ceiling for the exemption to VAT on the lot purchase is 1.919500. Okay, and then for the house and lot, it's 3,199,200. Okay, although supposed to be this must be reviewed or adjusted every 3 years. Since this was out in 2005, it's more than 10 years now. So I guess increasing or imposing VAT on the real estate transactions will be a deterrent to our people to purchase house, a lot or house and lot. Instead, if I may suggest, we have to increase the ceiling rather than remove the VAT exemption. Since in any activity in the purchase of house and lot, there is an economic activity, there is a multiplier effect, which in that case, the government is earning out of taxes generated in the economic activities. So, Mr. Chair, instead of removing the tax exemption, I suggest this must be increased rather than abolish the tax exemption. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tapanco. I think Senator
Chairman?
Zubiri has a question.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Yusek Carl and Attorney Aranas. Right now, when you buy a house or a condo, there's no VAT, right? It's 6% capital gains and 1.5% dock stamps. If you're buying let's say you want to buy a house in Parañaque and it's cost 5 million pesos, yung babayaran mo lang naman is capital gains and dock stamps, right, on the transaction?
Mr. Chairman, normally there's a VAT on real estate companies selling
If it's a person-to-person transaction,
cap gains.
gains lang, di ba? Yan yung, so,
That is right.
will this package add 12% to the transaction? Wala. It's not in the
No.
package.
No.
Okay, just to clarify.
This is I think the package refers to the socialized and the low-cost housing sector.
Because on the developers.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Senator
Not for
Zubiri.
personal use.
Can we hear from Attorney Beth Lampas of the Subdivision and Housing Developers Association?
Good afternoon, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
go ahead, ma'am.
I think everything has been said by my colleagues from the industry and from Senator Subiri. The imposition of VAT is really an pass on to the end users, and we have about, as Mr. Gorea mentioned earlier, 5.7 million unmet housing need, and based on my on the figures, more than 50% of that is socialized and low-cost housing. So about 2.8 million of that will be receiving the 12% or whatever balancing that the BIR will set. But definitely there will be effect on the price of the units, which will affect the affordability again, as Attorney Ave mentioned earlier. So we our positions, the subdivision and housing at least, is for a status quo of the VAT exemption for housing, socialized and low-cost housings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lampas. Can we hear from the BSP? There are 3 representatives. Can we just ask one of them to speak? We have Mr. Dakila, Mr. Cruz, and Mr. Aberoja.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
Your Honors. Earlier, the BSP had submitted its position paper, and in that we reiterated our support to the national government's efforts to mobilize higher revenues in an equitable manner to finance the development needs of the country. We supported the set of measures included in package 1, Mr. Chairman. As a package, we also noted that as a consumption tax, with the poor generally spending a larger portion of their income on consumption than the rich, the inherent regressivity of the value-added tax does not make it a primary instrument to address equity issues, and thus the BSP supports the creation of built-in mechanisms to protect the poor and the vulnerable sectors of society as the VAT base is expanded. Those are the general comments, Mr. Chairman.
Salamat, Mr. Dakila. Can we now hear from Deputy Administrator Brigido Dulay of the OWA? Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the honorable members of the board. Actually, we only would be relevant in respect of the money remittance issue.
That's
Yes.
right. No comment on the housing.
Well, no
But
comment.
anyway,
Right.
since you have the floor, you can give your comment.
Well,
on the,
with the clarification, Mr. Chair, that this only applies to domestic remittance, then we do not see any impact insofar as our OFWs are concerned, because right now they are in an exempt category, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy Administrator Dulay. Senator Zubiri, yes.
If I may be allowed to just go back to the BSP, on a case in point, I believe in the previous administration, I know this is off topic, but really quickly I just want to get an idea from the BSP. On the last administration, former Commissioner Kim Henares, correct me if I'm wrong, Clint, no, and the group's BIR, decided that all gold transactions will be charged VAT, right? So may tax na sila plus VAT. So parang 20% lumalabas binabayaran nila. And because of that, the gold selling in BSP dropped to like 0%. Everybody just put it in their bag and went to Hong Kong and sold it there. It's cheaper to buy a ticket, right, for less than 5,000 pesos one way. So my case in point, Mr.
They actually have a
Chairman,
bill. They're actually pushing for a bill to make the taxation clearer. I think to make it exempt.
So
for
I'd like to
small
get
scale-
the
for small
confirmation
scale
from the
gold, yeah.
BSP that you actually, your gold drops, your gold sales drop dramatically.
Yes, Your Honor, the sales to the BSP dropped following the imposition of tax
So, punto dyan, nagkaroon na ng smuggling at illegal bentahan ng gold. Is that correct, Mr. Dakila?
Yes, Your Honor.
So heavily taxing a particular industry can cause that effect, Mr. Aquila.
Yes, Your Honor. The difference is that gold can be smuggled outwards while this is a non-tradable commodity, so it's really
Thank you. I just wanted to ask that. It just came into my mind. So thank you.
Sorry, you said gold
Thank
is
you,
a
Chairman.
non-tradable commodity, sir?
housing.
Housing. Okay, right. Okay, just that's the law of unintended consequences, Senator Zubiri, because the intention of the BIR then, the past administration, was to raise revenues, but instead the revenues dropped to zero.
Basically, kasi, Mr. Chairman, that would be the same. If they increase their housing, less people will buy, and if less people will buy, less money for BIR.
Yeah.
They'll just rent. Diba? They'll just rent. Nobody will buy their own house. They'll just rent.
Yeah, it's a good point. We also have Senate Bill 958, which is to exempt the sale of gold, which I think is supported by the BSP.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment on housing, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, but we'll hear the designated resource persons before we go to you, attorney. Can we hear from Mr. Jerome Alcantara? But I assume this is also for the remittances, no? It's the Blas Ople Policy Center. Yeah. If you have no comment on these bills, then we can move on. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Your Honors. In behalf of the Blas Ople Center, which is a non-government organization representing overseas Filipino workers, we assumed initially that overseas Filipino workers will be affected by the proposed amendment to the National Revenue Code. But even with the clarification, we still oppose the inclusion of remittance centers. We hope first that the Senate will consider as a standard in or as a guidelines in reviewing all of the proposals that we propose that any measure that would diminish the disposable income of OFW or make the process of transferring money from one place to another more expensive. We hope that it won't pass the committee, primarily because we are moving, any proposal like that will be moving in an opposite direction in terms of fostering development using the fruits of the labor of our workers. Ano po. There are World Bank and ADB studies which says that instead of making it more expensive for people to move money around, it should be made more easier. Ano po. So that's our first point. Second, kahit po, I was looking around and parang ano, no, kahit hindi po apektado yung sector namin, yung OFWs, pag sa local naman po, tatamaan naman yung mga workers kasi kahit po local siya, mga migrants pa rin po yun. They move from the province to the city. So yung, halimbawa, yung sa personal experience, ano, kasi ako I don't use money remittance centers eh. Gumagamit niyan yung ano, mga domestic workers natin, yung mga drivers. So, yun po yung tatamaan nitong ano, nitong proposal na ito. So, sana i-consider din po natin yung ano, na hindi tamaan yung mga workers na yun. Yun lang po, Your Honors.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Alcantara. Can we hear from Mr. Ergi Ong from the Chamber of Pawnbrokers Center? Chamber of Pawnbrokers, sorry. No longer here. Can we hear? Yeah, sir.
Yeah, I'm representing the pawn shop industry. So basically, when it comes to unbanked or underbanked clients, we cater to this we call it the 70% of the population. No? So I agree with the previous comment that of course we need to protect our unbanked or underbanked clients by making sure that we provide affordable service fees. Right now we have existing rules about taxation on remittances, and I think those are sufficient to actually cater to this industry. And I also we are also happy that BSP has been releasing new rules, relaxing our some of accesses of these unbanked and underbanked clients. So at least in our business, since we cater to these underbanked and unbanked clients, we are actually helping also BSP towards their objective on financial inclusion. And I think that is one of the objective of this government. So our stand is to ensure that, yeah, I agree with the previous speaker that we need to protect this our target clients, the underbanked and unbanked. Plus, of course, we want to push for more financial inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I'd just like to share with the body that under Republic Act 10022, that's the new OWA charter, OFW remittances are exempt, made explicitly exempt from documentary stamp tax under Section 22. And the sponsor, I was a sponsor in the Senate. The sponsor in the House was the brother of Senator Win Gatchalian, Congressman Wesley Gatchalian. That's for people like Mr. Alcantara and Attorney Dulay. No? Can we now hear from Attorney Veronica Diaz of the National Housing Authority? Ma'am?
Good afternoon, Your Honor po. And as earlier mentioned po by Attorney Tolentino of HUD-C, we are already coordinating with other shelter agencies under HUD-C to come up with a common stand or maybe a common position paper on the matter. And as speaking in behalf of NHA, which is the GOCC directly interacting with the beneficiaries, so the issue all boils down po to affordability. So kung yung minimum fee nga po na sinisingil, eh hirap na po magbayad yung mga beneficiaries. What more pag may additional impositions po. Yan lang po. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Diaz. Can we hear from Attorney Jerry Banta of the BPI, Bank of the Philippine Islands? Okay. Sige. Could you step forward and identify yourself and give us briefly your position because we're running out of time, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I'm the Senior Vice President of BPI in charge of remittances. We heard already we are supposed to be the resource person for the...
Are you here for the remittances?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we are keeping this USEC. Okay.
Right.
We have no further comments because USEC already
I see.
clarified it.
Okay. Right. But do you confirm what Mr. Choi said earlier that if the money is sent through banks, there's a double charge? There's from the sending and the receiving?
No, we don't confirm that.
You don't confirm that?
We don't confirm that.
So what is the actual state of affairs? Yeah. So what is the state
So
of
there are actually several
Yeah.
types of remittance. One is a cash pickup and one is a direct to bank
Mhm.
credit. When it's direct to bank credit, there's already an agreement between the sending institution and the bank.
Okay.
So that charge is fixed already. Of course, we as a matter of service, it's not 400. I think you said 300%, sir. It's not correct to say that. And then when it's cash pickup, where we involve the outlets of the pawn shop, there's already also they have corresponding charge on the
Okay.
remittance.
Thank you for clearing that up. Thanks a lot. So there's just one charge.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Alex Francisco, the Tax Compliance Officer of BDO.
We have no comment on the remittance, but may I be allowed to make a statement about the bank secrecy?
Bank secrecy.
Bank
Okay, that's not really on the agenda, but maybe keep it brief because it's not being
Okay,
discussed right
I'll
now.
just observe it when
Or
it's...
maybe you can submit a position paper on that, sir, because I realize it's part of the package, which is constantly changing, no. But we welcome your comments, sir. Yeah, thank you. Can we hear from? I think we're done with the housing issue. Anyone else wants to comment on the
Mr.
housing
Chair, if
issue?
I may
Yes. Sorry, I promised you.
I'll-
I'll give you time.
I'll try to be quick, Mr. Chair. Just on the point of Senator Subiri, the VAT in the tax code, the VAT is an indirect tax. So I believe it will simply be passed on. And there's nothing in the law that prevents suppliers of goods or services from doing that. And that's a concern that happened even when telco companies began to be covered by they simply just passed on the VAT. So that's always going to happen because that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the VAT law. But the other comment that I'd like to make is that we can't miss the Constitution, and that I think that our hands are a little bit tied because of the Constitution. Section 13 on social justice and human rights. In fact, Section 9 of that article defines it even more specifically. The state shall by law, in cooperation with the private sector, have a continuing program of urban land reform and housing, which will make available at affordable cost decent housing and basic services to the underprivileged. And I think there's Gawad Kalinga habitat. Housing is a social function of the government, and if the government doesn't have funds to provide that social function, the least that the government can do is not to make money out of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Calcatra. I think Mr. Cho was raising your hand, sir, before we leave this.
Okay.
Before we leave this.
Mr.
Topic.
Chairman, I'd like to talk to about two things now. One about this remittance. Okay, just to let everybody know. Everybody knows that when you send to a bank of a foreign bank, it's 100% sure that there will be another charges when it comes to the Philippines. You can ask anybody, any OFW, when you talk about remittances from Middle East, there's what they call a back-end charge. They deduct something there and they deduct something here again. So I totally disagree with the statement.
Well, maybe you might be talking about apples and oranges. You might be talking about a particular type of transaction. He's referring to a particular type of transaction.
No, that's exactly the same type of transaction now. I was
Okay.
trying to make clear, Mr. Chairman, is this now. When you send money from a foreign bank to a Philippine bank, there's always two charges. The one that he's mentioning is when you send from a Philippine bank to another Philippine bank.
Okay.
Then there's only one charge.
Yeah, let's not get into a pissing contest, no? Because anyway, these charges are beyond the jurisdiction of the committee because what we're talking about here is taxation.
Okay.
So anyway, let's leave it at that, sir.
Okay. So just to make it clear now, the one that I was saying is when they put VAT, the one that's going to come from the foreign bank will now be subject to VAT because it will be payout of an income that is derived from the service of a local bank. Okay, that's one. The second one about the local remittance. We know that there are about 70% unbanked in the Philippines. The statistics according to BSP is that only 30% have bank accounts. And we are talking about the laborer or the kasambahays or even in the far-flung places. So when you talk about charging them additional 12% VAT, that means the money that they're going to receive will be much lesser. So it's an outright deduction of the money that they expect to get. So what will happen? Instead of sending it, they will just have to send it backdoor. They'll ask somebody to deliver the money to the relatives, which most of the time the money got lost. So that's the only thing I would like to say about the remittance.
Thank you.
Now for the housing industry, I'd like to let everybody know that there are about 230,000 housing production every year. And according to the statistics provided by BOI, from January 2014 up to June 2016, there are only 112,774 units that have availed of tax exemption. Okay, now let me make it clear that 65% of that is between the price of socialized housing up to 2 million. And 35% only is the one that up to the locust housing, which is between 2 million to 3 million. Those statistics can be verified. If we're talking about a total production of 575,000 units available or sold in the period January 2014 until June 2016, we are not even talking about 20% that is exempted from VAT. So that means the 80% have been paying VAT all the time. So I don't understand how this will benefit the poorest of the poor. Do not forget, the only reason why we are asking them to make more affordable housing is because the cost of housing, living in Metro Manila or in metro cities, is no longer affordable. As Senator Subiri have said earlier, the only way that you can buy a socialized housing is for far, far places. And because of that, you can go to the place of work between 2 to 2.5 hours one way. So that means you lost 4 to 5 hours of productivity time. When you are going to increase the price of the socialized housing and the low-cost housing, then it's no longer to be affordable anymore for the people that they wanted to give income tax holiday. As Senator has said, it's very right. Most of them are not even paying taxes. So what are we talking about? What additional collection of taxes will the government get when they are going to give somebody that is not paying taxes and then ask them to pay more housing costs? Now, last item about the VAT. It is true that there is input VAT and there's output VAT. But in practice, most of the developer had never had any refund from any of the input VAT that they have claimed. It is always carried as a tax asset, which I will tell, I can confirm it from our member on the association that we have a hard time passing it on because we are still hopeful that someday we might be able to get the refund because we have price ceiling also on the low-cost housing, economic housing, and the socialized housing. And now, if you're going to put VAT also on the socialized housing and the economic housing, the amount that you're going to pay Pag-ibig or even any government agency, the interest rate will increase because they also have a special affordable or subsidized interest rate for the housing sector. So I think they have to review it carefully. And since there's a upcoming Grand Housing Summit, we'd like to request that maybe the output of the Grand Housing Summit, which will be held on March 17, March 17 in Davao, to address all concern not only on the housing sector, be taken into consideration before finally approving or passing the bill that is now in progress. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sir Choa. Some good points there. Any other comments before we give the floor to Yusek Chua? Oh, Depcom Aranas, yes.
Sir, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, sir, I'd like to reply to Mr. Choa. Mr. Choa, you would really want to do a refund, but the problem is under the law, sir. The law limits us to refund only those export sales, sir. Input taxes related to export sales. We cannot do a refund any otherwise. So it's the law, eh. That's the law. So that's why you don't get a refund on all these things, but you get a tax benefit on the input taxes. Now, also, you have your tax lawyers here. There are a lot of tax experts here. You can ask them. On another hand, would like to take exception also on the image of the BIR about being corrupt and everything. Wag naman ho natin lahatin kasi it hurts the people who are doing their job, no? The Office of the Deputy Commissioner for Legal is always open for your complaints. In fact, when I sat, we already have 81 dismissals already, and yet we are undermanned. So it would be unfair to say there's corruption in the BIR. No one stands up and say that guy is corrupt and reports. If you don't do that, corruption will perpetuate. The administration is doing our best to stop corruption, but we cannot stop corruption if we don't identify the ghost. We need to identify this ghost. Otherwise, a sweeping statement like that is very hurtful for the image of the BIR because we value also our work. We want to do our jobs. So if you have any concerns about corruption and everything, the Office of the Deputy Commissioner for Legal is always open for you to objectively complain, and then we will hold a hearing on that one. And if you want to be confidential with your name, I'd be willing to assist you. But let's be responsible with our statements. And I also just like to add, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Senator Gatchalian.
Very quick lang kasi pumasok na tayo dun sa administrative. For example, merong nagsumbong. Gaano kabilis napaparusahan?
Sir, normally when you file a complaint automatically, I refer the case to the IID, the Investigation Division of the Bureau, sir. And then we ask the BIR official to do a show cause right away. And if there's strong evidence, sir, we automatically suspend, sir. I've suspended more than 300 employees already, sir. And
So,
it's
but-
really,
but
I have the data on that one. We
But
already
how fast is the process?
The process,
Typically.
typically mga 6 months, sir.
Mga 6
Then we
months
have a
the process.
decision on whether we dismiss or we
So
terminate
from the time
case, no?
nagsumbong, within 6 months suspension.
Yeah, hindi naman pwede sumbong yung away lang na personalan nilang
Mm.
away. Ang sumbong dapat is
Assuming
corruption.
may
Ah, yeah,
evidence
sir,
and everything.
we have no qualms. We will dismiss.
Ilan ang nako-convict?
81, sir, and dismissals namin, sir.
Hindi, in percentage term, ilan ang nako-convict?
Sir, dismissals. Since I took over, sir, 81 dismissals.
Out of ilan ang sumbong?
Sumbong normally,
81
sir, we
out
have
of what?
complaints around
More or
400,
less.
500
so
complaints, sir.
25% more or less.
We can do that, sir. Yes, that's the figure,
more or
sir.
less.
But I'll give you a better figure.
I'm just curious
A
lang.
clear figure on that one. But you know, seriously.
And how easy is it to
complain?
To
So
complain.
easy. As long as you complain the
For
circumstances.
example, an ordinary
Yeah,
ordinary entrepreneur,
Sir,
maliit lang siya.
888, alam mo, 8888 online.
888 pwede.
But don't naman use naman James Bond as your pseudonym naman, 'di ba? You use naman your name. 'Di ba? And we will keep your names confidential.
So,
and truly, if you do not like corruption, then let's stand up to it.
So
Di ba?
888 pwede.
888 pwede, but you have to give your full name. And when we ask you to come over and sign on a verified complaint, because we have a rule of law, that's a justice system. Come over, I'd be happy to assist you. My office is always open,
Email
sir.
pwede rin.
Yes.
Email.
Yes, but
I'm just curious again, no? For example, for an ordinary Filipino, so may due process yan, di ba? Ilang beses siya babalik doon para mag-hearing, ask him, in
Sir,
that 6 months
just
time
like,
frame.
sir, in
I'm just curious lang. Para,
when
for
we
that
file a
ordinary Filipino,
Okay, ordinary Filipino, sir, just you know, if you go to court, sir, courts, you know, may hearings talaga yan. We cannot do away with the due process system, no? We will have to notify the BIR personal concern, which is very common even if
so
you get
typically,
accused.
ilang beses siya babalik?
Sir, mga 3 beses yan. And then we make a resolution
Sa head
already.
office nyo?
Yeah.
So
We make
for
a
example, like
resolution.
kami sa Bulacan, pupunta kami sa saan bang BIR?
National office.
Oo.
And then when you leave, of
QC.
course, we will process your complaint, 'di ba? You will make a complaint. We will ask the BIR concerned, personnel concerned to show cause why he should answer the charges, no? And then with this reply, we then endorse this to the Personal Adjudication Division where we will hold hearings. Di naman pwede, sir, na we don't have we don't have due
I
process.
just want to understand the
Yes, that's how the procedure is, sir. Then, after the PAD, this goes to the office of the Assistant Commissioner for Internal Affairs, and it goes to my officer. You know, complaining about corruption is a very tedious thing. I know naman, but
Do you
we
have a
try.
different team that handles those type of
Yes.
mga
We have divisions
complaints?
for that one, sir. You have the one for investigation, and you have the Personal Adjudication Division, and then you have the Internal Affairs Service, sir, which is reporting directly under me. No, and we have done a lot of mileage on that one already. It's just that mauubos talaga, di ba?
Thank you.
No, I congratulate Attorney Aranas because I read it also in the newspapers that they did a good job. Well, they're in the first 6 months they've cleaned up house, and you're correct with your numbers, over 300 suspensions and dismissals. Maybe you could start with doing also a lot of lifestyle checks. Lifestyle checks is one because of course it's unexplained. Well, they have a nice house in Ayala Labang, and these guys are in Forbes Park or whatever, you know, and they can't afford it. Siguro moto proprio baka kaya nyo ng
Yes, sir.
i-lifestyle check.
There is what you call, sir, a revenue integrity protection service, sir, that is conducted by the Department of Finance. Then again, I would go back to underman kami, sir. Hindi talaga kayang habulin lahat, sir. Your PAD, you're talking about 2 lawyers. IID, you're talking about 3, 4 lawyers. Sir, talagang hindi kaya, sir. Talagang we are doing our best. It's just that we want to show you that our heart is there. We want to address this. And if you have genuine concerns about corruption, I address it personally, sir. Sigurado kami dyan. And then, I just like to give you data on, you mentioned kasi low-cost housing and everything. Just to put things in perspective. Low-cost housing kasi, sir, is considered your socialized housing at 450 VAT exempt yan. You're talking about low-cost housing, that's pricing from 450,000 to 1.7 million. And then you have the economic housing, which is 1.7 to 3 million. If you look at the VAT structure right now, sir, I mean, I leave the wisdom to you to amend it. It's 1.919. Batable ka na eh. Bat taxpayer ka na eh. The mere fact na 3 million ito, exempt ito, is really there's some effort here. Now, if you want to increase that, I leave the wisdom to you, sir. It's just that hindi naman to mahihirap na 3 million. I'm not
Aren't we
arguing
moving
with
the
anybody.
VAT threshold, Carl? Di ba we're moving the VAT threshold? Yeah. It's gonna move from 1.9
Sir,
to
we're
3 million.
increasing the VAT threshold on this one, but I'm just trying to put things in perspective. 3 million are not indigents, you know, and I don't abhor about if you don't want to put taxes on it. It doesn't matter. Para sa akin, personally, sir, if that's the wisdom of the Senate, you know, it's a political decision on our part. The reason why we're here because we want to help ways and means to generate funds for governance. Yun lang naman ang heart namin. We're just doing our job here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Mr.
Depcom.
Chairman, and don't worry, we support you there. We're also doing our job because we're elected by the people, and our job is also to make sure that it's, as you said, equitable, and as said earlier by Attorney Cabrera, in consonance with the Constitution. But so, are you telling me now that at 400,000 the house will be VAT exempt still? You're moving the threshold. What are you talking about?
Right now, sir, as it stands right now, it's VAT exempt. Of course, the Department of Finance is proposing reforms on that one.
Okay.
That's why
so
there's a
right
tax
now it's
reform
VAT
package
exempt,
on that one.
but this package one will remove all those exemptions. So no matter how low,
That's
they'll be
what I
VAT.
understand. Our understanding, sir. This is studied by the economists of the Department of Finance.
Just
sir.
to clarify,
Just to clarify,
Senator Zubiri, the moving of the VAT coverage, the threshold, is for businesses, applies to businesses who would be covered by the VAT. Because if you're covered by VAT, you have to make monthly reports. So our theory is that we told the DOF, if you're a small business, you know, you can't really afford to make all these reports. It's very difficult. So that's why we said, why don't we make it easier administratively? That's why they're trying to move up the threshold for VAT to help our small businesses and
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really
make it
quickly,
administratively more
before we
palatable.
recognize Mr. Carls,
Yeah.
this is my privileged speech on my ease of doing business, and this is from the Global Competitiveness Report. And Singapore pays 5 payments on taxes, Malaysia 13 payments on taxes, Brunei 27 payments, Myanmar 31 payments, Philippines is 36 tax payments that a small business has to pay in order to run. That's local and national government taxes. Kaya, we gotta help each other out here. We can't keep doing this. We're being bypassed by all the developers, and even local businesses are getting frustrated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Zubiri. I think Yusek Shua wants to comment. Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chair, respond to the very good comments and concerns of the stakeholders. Just want to touch on 3 main points. Details I can present in in a smaller group with the senators. I think number 1 is we would like everyone to remember that this is a package of reform, and not only is price the only factor that determines the sellability of a good or service. There are many other factors. One factor is the income effect. When we give back 140 billion to the people in the form of lower personal income tax, many people will have a similar purchasing power, even if we increase the coverage of the VAT on housing for those who can afford. The second is that we have also committed to provide the poor and those who cannot afford a targeted subsidy so that they can purchase the house. And this is basically moving from a producer subsidy where the developers indirectly get the subsidy in the form of a VAT exemption, to one that we believe which is more fair and targeted and directly will benefit the people.
Is the subsidy for the developer or for the buyer?
Our proposal is directly to the buyers through the budget, identify the beneficiaries. Number three is, of course, there's also the financing effect, and we are very strong and working very hard to ensure that our credit ratings continue to improve, because every credit rating upgrade translates to lower interest rates for the government and for everyone else who will buy a car or a loan or a house or so on. So my first point, Mr. Chair, is to remember that this reform is part of a package, and while the price may be increased because of the expansion of the VAT base, many other factors will determine the final disposable or purchasing power of consumers. In the same way, Mr. Chair, and Senator Zubiri rightly pointed out, we need jobs, we need livelihoods, we need better cost of doing business, and I assure you the economic managers are very much prioritizing this. So happens that the tax reform is the one that will go through Congress. Of course, it's getting a bit of attention, but I would like to assure that this is crucial. In fact, we want to assure the stakeholders that we are after job creation ultimately. Our estimate is for every 1 billion that we spent on infrastructure, the economy creates another 1 billion, because the multiplier of infrastructure is very high. And that creates almost 1,000 jobs for every 1 billion that we spend. And for the 162 billion that we propose to raise equitably from the tax reform, that is 162,000 jobs. And of course, this will multiply in the rest of the economy. However, we need to, of course, look at the tax reform, which is my second point, as something that everyone would need to contribute. Many people, I understand, wants this country to prosper, to see higher taxes for better infra, but there's this always the mentality that this tax reform should not happen in my backyard, so someone has to shoulder this. What we are proposing in this tax reform is to make it equitable for everyone to share the burden, and we will provide the same amount of services in another way through the budget in a more targeted approach. And then Senator, maybe Senator Zubiri mentioned about the ineffectiveness of 4Ps. I think there are many studies that really show that it is effective, but I think the concern is, of course, those who complain are 10 or 20 times more vocal than those who are quiet. But our survey that the Philippine Statistics Authority does show is that the poor really see an increase in their take-home pay and increase in their disposable income for education,
It's a long
health,
debate,
and
Yusek. Let's not
Yes,
get into that.
I will stop.
Let's start that debate
Uh,
here.
I know, I was about to
No,
comment,
Yeah. No. I'm gonna cut everyone short on that.
Okay,
This is not the right forum for that, no? That's just better discussed in poverty alleviation, or in the budget, or in finance, but not in ways and means. Okay?
Yeah, but
let's cut it short on the
maybe
CCT.
Maybe my point, Mr. Chair, is we want to do this reform to address poverty, not only through tax reform but also through all other means, livelihood and targeted transfer. Then I think my final point is, I don't think we will address the concern of the CREBA representative to reduce corruption and tax evasion if we maintain a complicated tax system, and the VAT is a primary example of this. 140 exemptions, and that multiplies the discretion and therefore the corruption and tax evasion. So we assure the chair and the committee that we in the Department of Finance family has this at the top of our head, and I think this tax reform really addresses that squarely.
Thank you very much,
you,
Yusek
Mr.
Carl.
Chair.
We'll leave this topic now because we're running out of time, and we still have to talk about the VAT zero rating on direct exports. So I think we know very much the position of Deputy DG Bordo. She's been here twice already to speak and object to the proposals. Can we hear from Mr. Aljun Valenzuela of the Chamber of Furniture Industries of the Philippines? Where is he?
Hi,
Yeah.
good afternoon.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable Senators. We are the Chamber of Furniture Industries of the Philippines, and we actually have more than 800 players nationwide, and 52% of these players are already struggling to compete in the foreign markets. Okay. Ayan. Okay. Okay, so we have more than 800 players, and 52% of these players nationwide are already struggling to compete in the foreign markets. We are a creative country with more than 1.8 million direct and indirect workers dependent on the industry. So
Please keep going, please.
yeah, yeah.
We
So,
don't have enough time.
Yeah, they rely on around 400 to 600 suppliers of raw materials nationwide and other inputs in the entire value chain. So competition is very stiff now in our industry, and actually our prices are still 25% higher than our competitors. So we have Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. Sobrang laki po ng agwat po namin. 25% ang layo ng presyo namin. And so with the 10 to 12% increase in the cost of inputs brought about by the removal of the zero rating for the direct sales to exporters, we feel that we are afraid that exporters will find no merit in continuing to fight in the global market. Zero VAT rating is just one of the few incentives now that is being enjoyed or remained for the exporters. Actually, we seldom get any support now directly from the government. Other comparatively with compared to other countries, no, kasi Vietnam and Indonesia, they're actually giving a lot of incentives to their exporters. And well, our position now is actually if we really want to as said earlier by our colleague, if we really want to push for the livelihood, the only way for the livelihood to be successful if there's a market. So kung wala pong market na tinitingnan yan at kung kami mismo ay hindi makapag-market abroad, then mababaliwala po yung livelihood natin. And of course, since this is the only incentive given by the government now to the exporters, I believe that removal of the zero rating of the zero VAT on exported goods and services and VAT on sales to direct exporters will actually do more harm than good for the beneficiaries or for our stakeholders. So, yun lang po ang aming position.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe just give us figures how much the VAT component is of your tax payments, and just give us the figures of the VAT paid by your members, please. Can you furnish us with those figures? Yeah.
I can get the figures and then submit it to the
Thank you. Salamat, salamat. Can we now hear from the Export Development Council? Miss Emma Mijares is here. Ma'am.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Senators, and we'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to air our position. In fact, the Export Development Council is an attached agency to the Department of Trade and Industry, and so the position that we will be giving is also the position of the DTI. And one of the members of the council is DOF, the Department of Finance, and it has been agreed in the council that when we give this position, we will explicitly say that the Department of Finance is abstaining from this position. So on the value-added tax on sale of goods or properties for indirect exporters, meaning the package is removing the exemption of indirect exporters from the zero rating. Our position is to retain the zero rated VAT granted to these indirect exporters. We try to compute the impact of removing this to the total price, export prices. And so for local value added, when local raw material will be 20% of the total price of the products, there will be an increase of 3% in the price of the finished products. For higher local value added, meaning 80% of the material will be coming from the local sources, there will be almost 10% increase in the final price of the finished products. So this will render our products less competitive now, even with the high quality that we have. We also note that one of the objectives of the bill is to simplify taxation, and if the law says that we can refund, I mean the direct exporters can refund the the input VAT, there's no simplicity offered here, because why pay in advance when in the end you will still apply for refund, VAT refund. So we also note that in the past, when exporters apply for VAT refund in the duty drawback and tax rebate center, it takes years to refund, and if the exporters hold their tax certificate, they cannot use that to pay their taxes, no? Why? Because they are not allowed by the BIR to use. Sometimes there was a time that they were allowed only to use 50% of the amount of the tax certificate. So the problem actually is not in the law, but in the administration of the law. We also request the removal of the 70% export sales threshold to encourage any amount of exports to generate jobs and spur inclusive growth, because in the existing law, only exporters with 70% revenue, 70% from the total revenue is being exported. So we would like to request that this threshold be removed. We also note that with the input tax, VAT zero rated for indirect exporters, we have encouraged exporters to source from local sources, no? To source their raw materials and component from local sources. We have seen this in when the NIRC was implemented back in the 1990s. The electronic sector had only 10% local value added. So now the electronic sector has 30% local value added. So aside from being encouraged to source from the local sources, we also use the zero rating of the input tax to encourage them or incentivize the electronics, the multinationals, to source from the Philippines. If this will be removed, they will be going back to sourcing from other countries, because sourcing from other countries is VAT exempt already. I think that's about all about the VAT, because the other positions are not about the.
Thank you, Ms. Mijares. Can we now hear from Philly Export? It's, Mr. Barrera, sir.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. We had presented earlier last maybe 3 weeks ago our position paper. I'd just like to add some statistics to get a feel of the impact of removal of the EVAT on the economy. Basically, our total exports of goods and services amount to about $60 billion. Now, of that $60 billion, our survey among our members show that about 33% of that exports are from locally sourced materials, as has been explained by the DTI. So that would mean about $20 billion of worth of local materials that are eventually processed and go to become 60 billion exports. So that we have also surveyed our members, and almost everybody said that to remain competitive, they would just rather import and no longer buy from the local suppliers. In effect, therefore, instead of $20 billion worth of local materials that are being processed, we will not have that $20 billion worth of local materials, and they would be substituted by an equal amount of 20 billion more imports to produce the 60 billion. So it's just pure simple mathematics. Therefore, this Banco Central should be prepared, therefore, to have another deficit of $20 billion in total. It is about as much as the OFW earnings that are being remitted into the country. You could kind of imagine that all of a sudden an equivalent amount of $20 billion of OFWs are no longer being remitted, and the central bank will now have to source another $20 billion of foreign exchange for the imports, for the importation. In other words, the import substitution thing will stop. It will be a very big effect on the economy. Now, the Department of Finance said in another statement previously that they think there are about 24 billion pesos that they can catch or plug. Impliedly, they're saying there are 24 billion fake sales of the indirect exporters to the exporters. So we have just, granting that there really are, although I really doubt, because I have not seen any mathematics or any statistics from where they have reached this figure of 24 billion that they intend to raise by taking out the zero VAT to direct exporters. But at any rate, assuming that they are correct, we have in effect $20 billion of local materials being supplied to exporters, so there is the trade. Now 20 billion in peso term times 50 to 1 is about what? 1 trillion pesos. An industry of 1 trillion pesos will be foregone by an effort of the BIR to try to raise 24 million. In other words, we're trying to save 24 million, but we're going to lose 1 trillion pesos worth of economic trade, goods and services. And with that goes, again, the multiplier effect. 1 trillion pesos makes how many jobs? You just work backwards, you can come up with a humongous number of unemployed. So what I'm just saying here is that let us study this very carefully by people, by a technical working group, who know how the real economy works, not on theories, not on macroeconomic theories, which are basically big figures. But let's go to how the real cash flow, how the economy really works from the microeconomic experiences of the economy. That is what we are petitioning, that if there should be technical working groups formed, that there should be people who had experience to participate in this and not be kind of one-sided. I just wanted to give those figures. We will be able to give you, incidentally, we have, Mr. Senator, been able to canvass at least 33 sectors of our field export memberships, and we've come up with figures ranging from 12% to 30% to 40%. The garment sector will be heavily hit, the furnitures and the wood sectors.
Yes,
will
we're
be
very
heavily
concerned
hit.
about that, Mr. Barrera, and we would appreciate that information
And
very
those
much
are those
to
come
enlighten us.
industries
Sir,
which have a
you-
lot of employment.
That's right.
Thank you.
Could you give us the breakdown per industry of the sales and which local industries are the source of these sales? We'd appreciate that very much. Thank you. Uh, Director Abordo, you have the. But I think you've given your position already twice, no? I don't think it's changed in the last. I don't expect you to suddenly support these measures.
You're right, Your Honor.
So let's keep it brief, oh? I think we know your position.
Yes,
quite.
I already have ventilated our position in various fora. So I just like to add to the information that was already given by Ms. Emma Mijares and Mr. Barrera. We of course share the same position. In addition to the figures that were provided by Mr. Barrera in PESA, for instance, the local purchases of PESA enterprises in 2014 amounted to 5.79 billion and in dollars equivalent, and in 2015 4.72 billion US dollars. So that actually translates to 10.8% of the total value of exports, direct exports of PESA enterprises in 2014, and 13% of the total value of direct exports of PESA enterprises in 2015. So if we add indirect exports of PESA to PESA and PESA to other exporters that are not registered with PESA, the total purchases of PESA enterprises from local suppliers and from other PESA enterprises and two other export enterprises not registered with PESA amount to $13.68 billion in 2014 and 11.52 billion US dollars in 2015. Our concern really, essentially, Your Honor, is cost of doing business and ease of doing business. So essentially, paying a VAT upfront will already be an additional cost of business in terms of the cost of money, of course, before they are able to refund their VAT. Ease of doing business, of course, claiming a VAT refund is not easy, as the other resource speakers have pointed out already. Of course, the OF has said that they will make it easier. And on this matter, with regard to the ease of doing business and the VAT refund claim, we actually recognize the concern of DOF as to possible leakages, because they have said that local suppliers are suppliers not only to PESA companies but also to other companies that are not registered with PESA, and therefore these local suppliers that are not registered with PESA can actually say that some purchases were actually sold to PESA when they are not. Actually, in the House hearing, we told the committee that if this is the concern, then we will be very happy to provide an automated system wherein we will pre-clear on an electronic basis purchases that on which a VAT zero rated is claimed. So we have done this already for importations. We actually issue an import permit and only allow and pre-clear importations that can be subject to exemption from duties and taxes. So the other concern, of course, is that, as mentioned by Mr. Barrera, this will discourage export enterprises from procuring locally because they can import instead. So the effect of this is that this will also reduce or discourage also the local local suppliers from being developed as a separate industry. In fact, this is one of the efforts also of PESA, and this is one also of the efforts of all of the government agencies that are engaged in promoting export sales, because a large supply base for their raw material requirements is actually also an incentive for exporters. Not to mention the fact that, of course, a larger local supply base would also mean increase in jobs created. So that being said, Your Honor, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wants to comment on this? Attorney Roque, yeah?
Just a very short one on the VAT on direct exporters. Your Honor, we're in our discussions, we're assuming that all the direct exporters can claim for a refund on the input VAT that is passed to them. But there's a group of exporters who are subject to a special rate of 5%. Those who are PESA 5% or SPMA 5%. Their exports are VAT exempt. So any input VAT which are passed on to them will not be refundable. So our request is for the DOF to check or to clarify this ensuing difference and how it will impact on these exporters. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment? Director Agustin, do you want to comment? Ah,
I would just like to comment on the. I think there is impression that the zero rating of indirect exporters is a form of incentive. No, it's not. It was actually designed to address the unreliable VAT refund system. So instead of us, because at the time in 1988 when we imposed the VAT, there was actually a fiscal. There's not much fiscal space as what we are experiencing now. So in order for us to manage the cash the cash position of government, we invented this credit certificate, and then it become a problem, and then instead of the indirect exporters having to issue or to be issued tax certificate, we instead place them under the zero rating so that they will not pass on VAT to the direct exporters. That is not really, that is supposed to be a stopgap measure to address the unreliable VAT refund system, but it is really not wise to consider it as a form of incentives. We are now taking it away because it caused a lot of leakages, it caused a lot of problems, it even. So that is really basically the very important reform.
is there a way of
VAT.
quantifying the
Yeah.
leakages?
Yeah.
Is
Thank
there
you,
a way
sir.
of quantifying the leakages? Meron ba tayo?
Ah,
Na-quantify ba natin yung leakage?
No, sir. What we have is the amount that could be generated if we lift the zero rating of indirect exporters, which is basically the 24 billion that Mr. Barrera has been quoting.
Mhm.
But as far as the leakage is concerned, I'm afraid we do not have that data.
Yeah, but I'm just quite concerned about the issues raised about
Mm.
it might lead to a drive towards imports. Hindi ba cause for concern yan?
Yeah, but actually if they will import, it will still be they will still pay the VAT. So I'm not sure if there's the difference if
So
if
that's
they
not a
will
valid
source it
assumption.
locally
It's not a
or
valid assumption to say that it will lead to a drive to import.
yeah, they will also pay VAT on that.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Attorney Cabrera.
Yeah. Yeah, just the concept of the foreign territory, the foreign soil concept of the special economic zones.
Yeah, yeah.
So imports there are exempt, and that's why also the sales going to special economic zones are also exempt because of the foreign soil theory. So if you change that, you change the law. I also like to differ on the
Wait, but let's follow that to the logical conclusion now. You're saying because the imports is tax free in a special economic zone.
sales going to
Yeah.
special economic zones, even coming from domestic, is also exempt because that's foreign soil.
Yeah, it's foreign
That's the
territory
theory.
in effect.
Yes.
No? Yeah.
And I also like to take
So
exception.
meaning, tama ba yung sinasabi ng PhilExport na it
Yes,
will lead?
yes, Mr. Chairman.
But you're the counsel of PhilExport, di ba?
No po.
You're not,
I hope
you're
so,
not the
pero
tax
no, no.
consultant of
No, no.
PhilExport. Okay.
My earlier comment on the export refund is for the general exporters, but this is I also differ on the that this is not an incentive. It is an incentive. It is a special law that provides for a separate tax regime, and it is my hope, Mr. Chair, that there will be a distinction between tax exemption and tax incentives. Tax exemption is the relief from taxes provided under the tax code. Tax incentive is just to enforce the things that you made investment in that place attractive to the investors. So you can't just change the rules in the middle of the game because you invited them there because of these incentives. That's why the rule is that in case of doubts in the implementation of incentives, you give that doubt in favor of the registered enterprise. For an exemption, it's different. If there's doubt in the exemption, it's subject to tax.
May rule bang ganon?
Yes, there is.
There is a rule like that?
Yes, the rule on tax exemption is a very popular jurisprudence,
Yeah.
jurisprudential rule. The rule on incentives is enshrined in the laws. I can
Mr.
cite the
Chair.
provisions in the
Maybe you
incentive
can
laws.
give us the legal precedents, because my knowledge is that tax exemptions are strictly construed. That's the general rule, no?
Yes, that's why I'm
And
saying
that would be an exemption to that general
the
rule.
incentive is not
Yeah.
an exemption. It's a separate regime.
So it does that. Could you furnish us with the jurisprudence
Ye-
for that?
gladly, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Ms. Mijares. Yeah.
This is actually for exporters who are not within the eco zones, no? Even exporters, export products which have components imported or local should not be should not have VAT. That's an international practice and law. The it's true that zero rating is not an incentive, no. It is actually an international practice for that any component that comprise the direct export products will have to have no VAT. So exporters are not paying VAT for imported raw materials, and if especially if they are using the bonded warehouse, they pay, but they apply for refund and duty drawback because they're entitled to it. No? So my position, our position is that it's not about the law actually. It's about administration of the refund, the system within the. That's the reason there are leakages, no. So it's not the law that has that is the cause of the leakages. It's the administration. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, DEPCOM.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I must agree with Ms. Mijares of the Export Development Council that there are two kinds of exporters kasi, the direct and indirect. What are the direct exporters? The direct exporters are those who actually export their products. The indirect exporters are those who it's either they locate inside the PESA zone or they are outside the eco zone and they supply the exporter. Now, the problem really here is, at the end of the day, you're right, you have a refund system on the input taxes that you accumulate from your exports. In other words, the reason why it is valued at zero rate, so that they can, kasi in our VAT system, sir, if you are zero rated, there's input and output taxes. But when you're VAT exempt, there's no input taxes. So as an incentive to the exporters, we gave them at a 0 rate % so that when they do and make an export, the input taxes passed on to them can be refunded. And that is under Section 112. Now, the proposal of at the end of the day, the DOF, sir, I am not the one making the policy, but let me explain to how the DOF explained. Mr. Yusek Chua had to step out because he has an emergency with his child. So, allow me, sir. At the end of the day, the indirect exporters, what they do, whether they be located inside a zone or not inside a zone, whatever the purchases they make, they're the ones claiming for the refund based on the effective zero rating principle. And this is what the Department of Finance is saying. Ganun din naman, magre-refund din naman. It's either si indirect ang magre-refund o si direct exporter ang magre-refund. So sabi ni Department of Finance, to uncomplicate, to simplify matters, pass on the VAT to the direct exporters and let the direct exporters refund it, because at the end of the day, there's only one refund you're talking about. That is the rationale there, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments?
Mr.
Yeah, Sir Barrera.
Yeah, ideally, okay, let's say ideal, on a perfect world, that is acceptable. Now, put yourself in the position of an exporter, okay? He has a choice. It's a free world, whether he imports and goes through a bonded warehouse, and he doesn't have to pay any cash. He just puts a bond, correct? And he has no problem of getting refunds, lining up, and etc., etc. Okay. So it's an easy way. Okay. Contrast it to your proposal that he has now to line up to BIR, whatever documents you may need, and etc., etc., and wait for a refund. Okay. So now you're a businessman, you're an entrepreneur. Going through that process, notice the government is not saying, I'm gonna believe you, or I'm going to refund you in 1 week or 10 weeks or whatever. The government is not saying anything. In other words, there is the call it uncertainty. There's a big uncertainty. So put yourself as a businessman. You say, why will I be in an uncertain basis kung ma-recover ko o hindi? Makukuha ko ba lahat yung aking binayad or nasang ganon? Na-export ko na back to back yung ganon. In other words, why risk on an intangible, uncertain future purely at the hands of the BIR at that point? Whereas, you could be absolved yourself. What the hell? I'll just import from Taiwan, China, and etc. and rest easy. I can predict my profits that way. So this is the big problem that we are going to have, this dilemma. We have surveyed, and a lot of our people said, kung ganon, we will just shift back to imports. So all the San Miguel cartons, whatever they're buying, plastic pipes, itong bottles and etc., packaging, will go down. The domestic industry that has grown supplying these direct exports will go down. And that is what I was saying. That will be, of course, be substituted by $20 billion worth of imports, some more incremental imports of maybe $20 billion. And are we prepared? Is the economy prepared to face that? Kung marami tayong pera, of course, no problem, no? But what I'm saying is that central bank should be concerned about that. There's going to be additional dollar demand. There is less input, less remittance, less income. The balance of payment gap is going to be doubled from 20 billion nowadays that is just being covered up by OFW of the same amount. That will double to 40 billion. And on the short, will short about 20 billion. Our exchange rate, what do you think it will stay? Never stay at 50. No more. That will go to 65 to 70. Are you all here ready for that? 70 pesos to a dollar. This is just the impact. I'm not saying I'm predicting the end of the world, but we'll just maybe have to adjust to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Attorney Cabrera, you're raising your hand.
No, just quick, Mr. Chair. Indirect exporters, in order for them to be more competitive, some of them choose not to be VAT registered because if they claim a refund for their input VAT, they're not able to get it anyway. But if they claim that as deduction as part of their expenses, they're at least able to get 30% of that. Now, that kind of approach will not be available if you subject them to 12% VAT. That's why that's to supplement Mr. Barrera's presentation.
Yeah, go.
Sir, I'd like to comment with Mr. Barrera. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, first of all, not my measure, it's a due of measure, but just theoretically, sir. Refunds, whether you do refunds, whether you are a direct or an indirect exporter. You mean to say, sir, the indirect exporters do not import? Based on our records, the indirect exporters, the one who supply the direct exporters actually import. They actually import. They enjoy the same benefits as the direct exporters. I am not saying all, but most are sourced imported. That's something, sir, that the DOF is trying to stop a tax leak here, that is the DOF initiative, sir. No. To the other Mr. Cabrera, sir, Mr. Chairman, he mentioned that indirect exporters are not VAT registered. How can they claim zero rating?
They will not. They will just claim it as expense.
Sir, if you
Under current law, if you're supplying to a PESA registered enterprise, right? So if you're supplying to a PESA registered enterprise and you're supposed to be zero rated if you're subject to VAT, but if you're not registered, then you're VAT exempt.
Mr. Chairman, I'll address this to you. You know, if you're supplying a direct supplier, it's supposed to be VAT registered. Now, if you go beyond the threshold of 1.919, you should be VAT registered. You know, that's just my comment, sir. I mean, I'm just looking at from the tax administration aspect. I'm not liking to argue here. It's just that, you know, we put things in perspective.
Okay to argue. We're here to argue. It's the committee. We argue here. This is the Senate. We like arguing.
Let's put things in perspective, sir. To be fair, so that everyone can understand. It is the ignorance of the taxpayer that makes us ignorant and non-compliant. We have to empower ourselves to understand because tax laws are very complicated.
Mr.
Too
Chair.
comfortable with that phrase, ignorance of the taxpayer, because you know, it just assumes that most of the Filipinos are lawyers or compliant with the or aware of the law. No? Yeah, Director Agustin.
Yes, sir. I would just like to emphasize that as what Undersecretary Carl said earlier in the hearings, that the only time that we are going to remove the zero rating of indirect exporters is when the a more reliable VAT refund system is already in place. We will not remove it unless the promise of a VAT refund system is in place.
Is there any way that you can give them an advance assurance that this system will be indeed reliable, aside other than just the promise? Yeah.
Actually,
because there are currently VAT refunds being claimed already, di ba?
Yes, sir.
Are they being
yeah.
processed expeditiously? Maybe that could be a sort of like a signaling to the because that was a big complaint in the last dispensation, no? About the talagang once hindi na talaga mailabas yung
I think
if there's a show of good faith on that respect, then maybe you can convince them things will be different.
I think
but I think they're going by they're really going by what has transpired in the recent history, no?
Yeah, as far as the promise is concerned, the promise there. But I could refer you to BIR and as far as the actual refund system is being taken place. But as far as the budget is concerned, there is now 8.5 for BIR refund, and there is 6.5 billion for BOC refund, and these are being utilized now. I understand, and
the budget is there, but
yeah.
We're talking about expeditious facilitation. You know?
Yeah, may I refer you to
what can we show in that regard?
Okay.
Sir, can I introduce you, Nelia? And also, I'd like to I have a colleague here from TMAP who actually passed on a note to me. TMAP are experts in taxation also. I appreciate the comment here being objective about it to help the law, the country, no? If the the proposal will help increase efficiency of VAT refund because only direct exporters will apply for the refund instead of the situation now where all suppliers are actually applying for refund. So you look at the administration on our side, undermined already, and everything, all this confusion. So that's an unquoted comment from a colleague, sir. And maybe Ma'am Nelia will add Nelia from the BIR, ma'am. Sir.
Yeah, sige. Please identify yourself and your position. And
I am Nelia Castilla from the Tax Audit Review Division of the National Office, the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Yes, with respect to the question that if tax credit claims for tax credit or refunds are being processed, yes. Under Section 112A of the Tax Code, it states there that the Commissioner is empowered to issue tax credits or certificates within 120 days from the date of complete submission of documents. And based on RMC 54-2014, it strengthened that section, which states that it is on the date of filing of the application that the 120 days counting would begin. So I'm proud to tell you that we are really processing tax credits and refunds.
Is the average period for processing?
Sir, 120 days.
No,
from
that's the legal period.
Yes,
But what
yes.
is the actual average
I'm
period?
sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. But the actual, okay, yes, sir. It would be dependent on the case.
No, that's why we're asking for an average because
Average.
because we realize that it will vary from
average,
case to case.
Average, okay. Estimate perhaps 90 days?
Okay, so yun ang sinasabi ko.
Yes, actually,
we
sir,
want to plug all the leakages by telling people, you'll have to claim a credit. But sila naman, ayaw nila mag-claim ng credit kasi may masama ng experience nila eh.
Sir.
Diba? So something has to break that impasse. And what I see to break that impasse is a show of good faith on the part of BIR saying, look, the law provides 120 days, but kami, pinoprocess namin 30 days pa lang. Tinatapos na namin. Something like that, di ba? No, these are just hypotheticals, no? But something has to break that impasse. Otherwise, nothing will change in this country, di ba?
Mr. Chair, actually, there was this duty drawback and tax rebate center. Kaya lang, in the past
Care about any
administration...
center or whatever you name
Opo.
these things. I just care about the people getting their transactions processed. That's what makes Singapore Singapore, and that's what makes Philippines Philippines.
Sir, what
Diba?
happened in the last administration is tinanggal yung BIR doon sa one-stop. So, hindi na siya one-stop. So, balik na
Naging
siya doon sa...
two-stop. Kasi babalik siya doon sa
yeah,
BIR.
babalik siya sa BIR.
Naging two-stop.
Dun- nung
sino naman
nandun sa
nagtanggal ng
one-stop-
one-stop?
nung
Sino
nasa
naman
one-stop,
nagtanggal
mas-
ng BIR sa one-stop?
Nung nasa one-stop, mas mabilis po.
Sino nga nagtanggal? Si
Last
Commissioner.
administration.
Sino? Si Commissioner?
Commissioner,
Sir,
opo.
actually, the BIR complement under the one-stop shop has been was recalled by former Commissioner Kim Henares.
Okay, yeah. That's why
So,
there's so
there
many
is
complaints
actually a
kasi nga hindi
division.
nila nakuha yung refund nila. That's why they're now, you see this position now, nag-hardline sila. Kasi nga nahirapan sila talaga. We have to understand where we're coming from di ba?
Yes.
Otherwise, wala tayong mapupuntahan dito.
Yes. Your Honor, we understand. Oo. Sir, Ornan. No, not yet, sir. Actually, sir. Of course, upon investigation, sir. All tax credits claims kasi.
Mr. Chair, I just want to ask if it's automated or...
Good point. Automated na ba yan? O talagang filing cabinet pa rin tayo, index cards, high-tech Philippines?
For some information, with the summary list of purchases being submitted by the suppliers of the claimants, we have automated figures that is based on the summary list of sales and purchases being submitted by the suppliers of the claimants. So we have that in our warehouse in the bureau, so we can more or less determine the sales
It's
of
such a
these
complicated
suppliers.
answer for a very simple question.
Yes, sir.
It's such a complicated
No.
answer for
No,
such
sir.
a
Actually,
simple
we're still doing
question.
the manual.
Are you
We're
automated or not?
Not yet.
Are
Manual.
You can say we're not automated. It's partially automated.
Yes,
we're
I'm
not
sorry.
automated at all. But you
okay.
say you have a center, you have a warehouse.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
sa one-stop po meron. May automation.
Ba't hindi natin ibalik sa one stop? Why don't we return it? DepCom.
You can, I will ask the commissioner about it.
Oh, I mean, apparently there's already a best
Sir, we
practice,
can
but
ask
we're
the commissioner
regressing.
about it. Or we can adopt the suggestion earlier. You refund now and then investigate after. After all, if you file a claim for refund, you
bakit
actually
hindi ganon?
stand.
Bakit hindi ganon,
You
di ba?
actually stand. This is my personal view. This is not a DOF view. So please forgive
No,
me.
we'll take it
for-
with a grain of salt, and we
Yeah,
respect
yeah.
your experience as a
Yeah.
practitioner.
Me,
You've been on both sides.
You
so.
know, if you file a claim for refund, sir, you also get investigated. In the same
Yun nga,
manner,
palitan natin yung
refund
sistemang
and
yun.
then investigate.
Kasi
Ganun din
bulok
naman
yung
eh.
sistemang yun eh. Bulok
Ganun
yung
din naman
sistema
because
yun.
after the refund, you still get investigated. Might
Eh
as
nga,
well
bulok nga yun. Palitan na natin yun. You're in a
investigate.
position to make that change.
You you can make a suggestion to that to the Department of Finance or any commissioner.
O sige, you make the suggestion to me, I won't name you, but hindi na tayo pwede sa bulok na sistema eh.
In a public
Diba change is
forum.
coming? Change is coming, di ba?
Baka ma-exchange is coming ang deputy commissioner.
Binibiro nga change coming, hindi change is coming, di ba? Scamming na lang.
Baka nga ma-exchange ang deputy commissioner, sir eh.
Exchange.
Baka
Okay,
ma-exchange.
sige. Come on.
Okay, so that's all.
Talagang wala tayong mapapala nito. Is there I'll give both of you a last statement, but that's it.
Okay.
I I also would like to reiterate that as what Undersecretary Chua said, is that there is going to be a technical working group. It's going to be reconvened, the technical working group on VAT refund, and then it will look into the
Sino ang technical working group?
It would be
Department
headed-
and the exporters.
no, it's an interagency, sir. It's a DBM,
Okay.
NEDA,
Di ba
COA.
konsulta kayo sa mga affected sectors?
We will do that, sir. We will do that. It will be headed by
Kasi dapat sana ginawa nyo yun bago nyo binigay sa amin, di ba? Tuloy kami yung nagiging TWG.
No, sir. I think it is now a parallel effort with the Department of Finance. So,
But I do
yes.
agree with what Mr. Barrera said, that you have to talk to the people on the ground who really, it's at the end of the day, it's the private. I know the DOF has very good intentions. You want to grow the economy, you want to lower poverty, but it's not the government who's going to do that. It's the private sector who's going to do that with the help of the government. Let's realize that, no? Sige,
Do that,
go ahead, ma'am. Let's wrap up.
Sir, do you want the figures for the process refunds and tax credits? for
Maraming figures na okay.
for
Anong figure yan?
2016? Yeah. Okay, I would just like to give just a brief summary of the applications for tax credit certificates filed in 2016.
Well, maybe don't give me a deluge of data. Just tell me what does the data tell us? How does it show that you're processing it more expeditiously?
So expeditiously, okay. So actually, I have the data for the figures, for the amount and the number
But
of claims, sir.
again,
For the processing, yes,
the
sir.
data tells you a lot of things. But what's the conclusion we can draw from your data?
Okay. That we really are processing tax credits and refunds, sir.
Okay.
So the point
How?
is, sir,
Sige,
the point,
sige.
sir, is that
Sige,
the
submit us the
claimant-
data and we'll verify
Yeah.
if it shows that you're
We'd like
processing it
to-
more expeditiously.
to
Allow me
ad-
to submit, sir.
Oo,
Thank you.
yeah, okay.
We'll appreciate the submission and then we can draw our conclusions.
Yes,
no?
sir. Thank
So thank you to everyone. Thank you to Senator Gatchalian for,
Sorry.
we're going on 4 hours already. Medyo limited na yung absorption natin dito.
Okay.
But thank you very much and rest assured we'll listen to all the proposals and all the feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.